Chapter 381. Variables. Hidden Spirit Palace. Ever since Shenzhen had left, every time Guan saw Ji Xiaoyu, she would ignore him, feigning ignorance. In the days that followed, rumors began to spread in Medicine Valley, suggesting that there was a falling out between the master and elder Ji. This led an Xian to inevitably inquire about this matter when she accompanied Guan to Mortal World Peak. "Don't gossip. I haven't had any conflict with her." Guan gave an Xian a stern look and spoke without mincing his words. An Xian giggled and did not press further. Instead, she went to the side to begin her cultivation. At Mortal World Peak, she did not need to hide her cultivation level, so she cherished the opportunity to cultivate there. Guan descended the mountain alone, wandering aimlessly on the mountain. Because of the previous controversy over stealing herbs, Guan deliberately slowed down the pace of harvesting on Mortal World Peak. However, even so, with the constantly increasing production from the Outer World Cave, he was already able to amass nearly 4 million years of lifespan every year. His total lifespan had exceeded 400 million years. At this rate, Guan could also become rapidly stronger. Therefore, he now tried to keep a low profile, taking fewer disciples and intervening less, to avoid accelerating the pace of the major changes in Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Walking along the mountain path, Guan's divine thought reached out to Zhu Xi. Zhu Xi was at the lowest rank sea peak, where Mortal World Peak had purposely allocated a sea area for disciples below the Immortal Path realm, and only those who had reached the Nirvana realm could pay tribute to divine peaks like Dingtian Peak. Years had passed, and Zhu Xi had become integrated into Mortal World Peak, with a low presence and her talents unknown to others, her life following the same routine as her previous days by Moonfall Divine Lake. Recently, she had reached core formation, and within Mortal World Peak, she was essentially like a servant disciple, tending to the medicine garden, much like Guan had once been. Guan could sense the immense spiritual power contained within her. The Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body was like a black hole, quite challenging for even a free immortal to discern her physique. Once she fully released it, her cultivation level would skyrocket. In terms of physique, she was definitely the strongest Guan had ever seen in his time, with the ancient treasure body paling in comparison by several levels. At this moment, Zhu Xi was planting medicinal herbs. Even though she was alone in the garden, she conducted herself with utmost caution, appearing no different from an ordinary disciple. Guan watched for a while, then lost interest and retracted his gaze. He made some calculations. It was inevitable that Zhu Xi would eventually have a falling out with Mortal World Peak. Once her theft of the medicinal herbs came to light and led to a conflict with the disciples of Mortal World Peak, she would be expelled from the peak and might even be pursued and hunted. But that node was still very far away. Guan had no intention of stopping it. Along the way, he foresaw that many disciples' fates would turn against Mortal World Peak. The reason for this was that there were simply too many disciples in Mortal World Peak, and it was implausible that all of them would remain from beginning to end. Even if he intervened early, as long as Mortal World Peak continued to take on disciples, such troubles would still arise. The deeper Guan delved into the research of cause and effect, fate, and destiny, the more he could feel how terrifying destiny could be. Knowing and possessing the ability to change one's destiny is not necessarily a good thing. Because once changed, destiny introduces unpredictable variables, and those variables were beyond the control of the one who initiated the change. Only when a cause is present can one speculate the outcome. Without a beginning, it is impossible to calculate the result. Throughout the herb-gathering process that followed, Guan kept observing the cause and effect of Dingtian Peak disciples, enhancing his understanding of the way of cause and effect. Night fell. Guan did not return to the Supreme Sect, choosing instead to stay on Dingtian Peak. He lay on a chair, with the bright moon above and a book in his hands, thoroughly enjoying himself. An Xian was still cultivating nearby, her body emanating specks of light star, ethereal and otherworldly, as if she could ascend to immortality at any moment. The courtyard resounded with the chirping of insects, adding a touch of vitality to the garden. Suddenly, Guan looked up, only to see a shooting star streak across the night sky at an incredible speed. Usually, such a shooting star signifies the arrival of a heaven and earth flying immortal. However, this time was different. Guan could feel that the other party's cultivation was far above that of heaven and earth flying immortal, likely a divine thought true immortal. Could it be that the immortal dynasty and the holy court are about to go to war again? Guan thought this to himself. The chief fortune of these two powers was too grand, capable of blocking cause and effect deductions. At least he was not yet able to comprehend it completely. He hoped for peace in the great heaven and earth, hoping the battle would wait 1,000 years or 10,000 years. By then, he would be more confident in handling any catastrophe. It's time to establish a new medicine valley. Guan quietly contemplated, as he had entertained such a thought for a while. He chose an underwater location for the next medicine valley. Eggs must not all be put in one basket. As the moon set and the sun rose, the next morning Guan sent an Xian back, then went alone to a mortal-seeking island to exchange his own share of the island master's profits for a large quantity of medicinal herb seeds. He left this task to island master Sun Hanfeng. Sun Hanfeng did not question why Guan needed so many medicinal herbs. In the immortal cultivation world, the demand for medicinal herbs was no less than that for spirit stones. No one would complain about having too few herbs. The higher the realm, the greater the need for herbs. He only envied Guan's capability. It was not until the evening that Sun Hanfeng handed over a high-level storage bag to Guan, filled with medicinal herbs. Night descended once again, and Guan arrived at the largest sea area in Great Heavenly Spirit Land. Under the night sky, the waves rolled furiously, creating an oppressive atmosphere. The demon energy here was extremely dense, with only rare traces of the breath of cultivators of the human race. Guan flew into the sea, which was extremely deep. The deepest point lay more than 100,000 miles from the surface, and it concealed numerous demon creatures as terrifying as heaven and earth flying immortals, and there were even traces of the aura of the carefree primordial immortal. Since the great heavenly spirit land was controlled by the human race, the powerful demon creatures had no choice but to band together. They formed their own world within this sea, isolated from the rest of the world. As Guan descended some distance, the surroundings became pitch black and oppressive. Upon reaching 10,000 miles beneath the surface, a green light appeared below, resembling a boundless green ocean. He saw numerous tiny sea creatures that, although not yet possessing spiritual wisdom, were incredibly fast, comparable to cultivators in the core formation realm. After passing through this green sea, darkness returned. Continuing downward, from time to time he saw various lights, all emitted by demon creatures. Guan even saw several cave abodes situated on the mountainous bodies of the ocean. Further down, he even saw a demon city, radiating dazzling light, with countless demon creatures coming and going. In this way, Guan arrived at the depths of the seafloor without any demons noticing. He found a region with no demon activity and used his mana to demarcate a 100-mile radius on the sandy bottom. Then he created a clone. With the clone's great mana, he formed a barrier so that beings outside could not see inside it. His original self then began casting spells to create an environment suitable for the growth of medicinal herbs. The spiritual energy at the bottom of the sea was immense, enough for the herbs to thrive. After altering the environment, he began to construct an array. An ancient hour later, this undersea medicine valley had been sown with medicinal herb seeds. He didn't intend to keep demon creatures to guard this medicine valley. His clone would suffice in the future. Although the clone did not have independent thought, if there were any movement, it could still alert Guan in a timely manner. When the time came, Guan would project his consciousness onto the clone, which could use the clone's power to resolve any trouble. Even a free immortal would be no match for his clone. After making all preparations, Guan went to the edge of the medicine valley, took out a steel, and planted it in the sand. Then, using the fate-determining pen, he wrote on the steel, "Hidden Spirit Palace." He called it a palace because he planned to build one there later, which could even serve as a dojo. Guan admired his own handwriting. It was truly becoming more elegant. He then vanished from the spot, returning to the Supreme Sect. The sea floor was silent. Outside the Hidden Spirit Palace was darkness, like an abyss. Occasionally, enormous figures like mountain ranges swam above the Hidden Spirit Palace, while Guan's clone meditated without opening its eyes. 15 years later. In early summer, Guan sat in the pavilion of Mystic Valley, admiring his attribute panel. He was very close to his 500 million year lifespan mark. The high-rank medical herbs of Outer World Cave would bring him a substantial increase in lifespan in the coming years, delighting his mood. Life was monotonous, but Guan did not find it dull. Watching his lifespan grow, he felt like he was leveling up in a game, a very fulfilling feeling. A knock came at the door and Guan said casually, "Come in." At his words, the door opened and Lu Jiojia entered. At 518, Lu Jiojia appeared to be just over 40, with a long beard that added to his imposing presence. He approached and gave a formal bow to Guan, saying, "Brother Gu, the Chen family's Medicine Valley has refused my terms. They continue to encroach on Mystic Valley's territory. What should be done?" Years had passed, and as the Supreme Sect grew stronger and remained uninvaded, more and more Medicine Valleys appeared outside the outer sect. Some were Medicine Valleys managed by the Supreme Sect, while others were cultivated by families to accumulate resources for their descendants. A Medicine Valley had sprung up around Mystic Valley, even larger in territory than Mystic Valley itself. The Chen family, a family that had risen to prominence in the last millennium, had elders in the Supreme Sect's inner sect city who held high status and great power. Having heard this, Guan responded, "No worries, I'll have an Exine go there tomorrow. In no more than 3 days, their Medicine Valley will vanish." Upon hearing this, Lu Jujia's face broke into a smile. He had no doubts about his brother's words. Brother Gus' influence was not small after all, and the Chen family was merely testing his bottom line. Otherwise, they would have already tried to seize Mystic Valley. Guan looked up at Lu Jojia and asked, "How goes your cultivation lately?" Decades ago, Lu Jojia had broken the cultivation level restrictions of the innate reincarnation skill. With Gu An's secret guidance in the path enlightenment, his maximum lifespan had reached 700 years. But 700 years was not long. Lu Jujia's cultivation level had grown too slowly, currently only at the 9th layer of the core formation realm. Even if he released his cultivation again, it seemed unlikely he'd reach the divinity transformation realm. By all appearances, Lu Jojia had no hope of achieving nirvana in this life. Hearing the question, Lu Jojia scratched his head and said, "Honestly, brother, I feel increasingly powerless. When cultivating, I find my heart weary and my thoughts wandering." Guan replied, "There's nothing to be done then. You must find a way to overcome it." Lu Jojia could only nod. He felt helpless and ashamed. His brother had looked after him so much over the years, and he felt he had let his brother down. Changing the subject, he said, "Speaking of which, brother, a prodigy has appeared in the Medicine Valley recently. Would you like to meet him?" As he brought up the prodigy, his excitement surged. After managing the affairs of Mystic Valley for hundreds of years, this was the first time he had encountered such a genius. It made him proud to be associated. Chapter 382. Jianghu's Past. Do you want me to meet him? Guan picked up a book from the table and smiled warmly at Lu Jojia. He no longer cared about mere talent. But humans are not emotionless plants. Lu Jojia and that disciple shared a deep bond, almost like father and son, and he wished to secure a better future for the disciple, which prompted him to speak to Guan. Seeing his fellow disciples smile, Lu Jojia gave an awkward smile and a false cough, saying, "I do hope you can meet him. Not only is his talent outstanding, but he is also very diligent." "If that's the case, bring him up." Guan shook his head with a chuckle, dismissing the brotherly relationship. Lu Jojia had been so dedicated for many years without complaint. Who was he to refuse him this small favor? Even without revealing his true cultivation level, Guan could change someone's life with just a word, thanks to his 500 years of networking in the Supreme Sect. Upon hearing this, Lu Jujia's eyebrows shot up in joy, and he quickly thanked Guan before hurrying off. Guan began to read. Although he spent most of his time away from Mystic Valley, Lu Jojia often stocked the place with books, ensuring that he always had something different to read. It wasn't long before Lu Jojia returned. A young man followed him, dressed in modest cloth garments. His features were not particularly handsome, but he had a fair complexion and a somewhat slender frame. The young man was extremely nervous and looked at Guan only briefly before lowering his gaze, daring not to look again. Lu Jojia stepped forward to introduce the young man, while Guan sent a lifespan detection towards him. Jianghu, Foundation Establishment Realm 2nd Layer 23/350/4800. A lifespan of 4,800 years. Truly, a rarely seen talent. Disciple Jianghu pays respects to master. Jianghu knelt down, bowing reverently. Guan habitually peered into Jianghu's karma, deducing his past and future before showing a gentle smile and saying, "Rise. There's no need for such formalities here in Mystic Valley." Jianghu looked up, saw his smile, and relaxed significantly before standing up to speak. Guan kept deducing while casually talking with Jianghu, taking interest in his cultivation practice. This was Xianxia's first encounter with a nascent soul realm cultivator. Although nervous inside, he spoke naturally, neither servile nor overbearing. Seeing Xianxia's demeanor, Lu Jiujia smiled in satisfaction, feeling that Xianxia was not embarrassing him. In his view, his brother had met countless talents. If Xianxia had been daunted, he would surely be looked down upon by Guan. Not to mention Li Ya or An Hao, let alone someone like Wu Ju in their sect, who was so spirited he had to address Guan as Brother Gu. Suddenly, Guan deduced something. His expression turned unnatural, but his tone did not change. After a while, Guan said, I am aware of your situation. You may go down and continue your cultivation. Jiangshi paused momentarily, then bowed and left. When he was downstairs, Lu Jiujia finally asked Guan, Brother, what do you think? Can this boy meet your standards? Guan pondered. His talent is indeed good. I can introduce him to a master. Lu Jiujia pressed. Can't he follow you for cultivation? With Jiangxi's aptitude, finding a master should be easy. But in Lu Jiujia's eyes, having Guan as his master would be the greatest path for Jiangxi. For several hundred years, though he never asked, he felt that his brother shared an inseparable bond with Sword Venerable Fudao. The precursor, Flying Leaf Sword Immortal, always made moves around Mystic Valley, and Sword Venerable Fudao's renowned battle had coincidentally saved him in Yilan, Zhenqin. A multitude of factors were too coincidental to ignore. And the innate reincarnation skill. Such a miraculous skill is unmatched in the Supreme Sect. He was wise enough not to question Guan, nor dare to discuss this matter with anyone else. If Jiangxi could follow Guan for cultivation, he might later gain the favor of Sword Venerable Fudao. Jiujia, you like him that much? Guan stared at Lu Jiujia and asked. Lu Jiujia replied, When he was 7, I brought him to Mystic Valley and watched him grow up, just like a son to me. Guan sighed. If I personally take him in, he would be bound to Mystic Valley, and you might die because of him, and he will also cause great trouble. According to his calculations, Jiangxi appeared to have a good character but was unscrupulous in his pursuit of immortal cultivation. After hundreds of years, gaining a position even as a servant disciple in Mystic Valley was challenging. The Chores Hall would select suitable disciples from Mystic Valley for profit, leading to current disciples being either rich or noble. At the age of 7, in order to enter Mystic Valley, he had found out in advance the list arranged by Chores Hall for Mystic Valley and drugged those he viewed as threats to miss their chance. No one suspected a 7-year-old child, so he succeeded. After entering Mystic Valley, even if some doubted him, no one dared to trouble him. After that, Jiangxi behaved very cautiously, concealing his true nature well. Guan predicted that in the future, he would steal the ultimate skill from the Supreme Sect, causing their cultivators to hunt him down, and Lu Jiujia, in an attempt to protect him, would mistakenly be killed by a cultivator from the Supreme Sect. Even though this was a future without Guan's intervention, it at least showed that Jiangxi was not simple. As long as he maintained his current relationship with Lu Jiujia, trouble would inevitably come. Guan had calculated thousands of possible deaths for Lu Jiujia, most of them related to Jiangxi. Hearing Guan's words, Lu Jiujia's expression changed drastically. He didn't reflexively rebut, but carefully reminisced. Had it been someone else who said this, he would certainly have been annoyed, but coming from his senior brother, he couldn't help but seriously ponder. Although he valued Jiangxi, how could Jiangxi compare to his senior brother in his heart? Even as he held Jiangxi in high esteem, he did not take it upon himself to teach the innate reincarnation skill to Jiangxi. I understand. Lu Jiujia took a deep breath, dropped these words, raised his hand in salute, and turned to leave. Guan didn't say more and continued reading. Jiangxi still didn't pose a threat to him. By evening, Guan left Mystic Valley and reached the Third Medicine Valley. He first found an Xian, revealed everything about the Chen family, and arranged for an Xian to visit the Inner Sect City tomorrow. The great elder of the Inner Sect City was from the LV family, and which the relationship between Guan and LV Batian, the LV family would definitely take action. Summer passed and autumn arrived, and in the blink of an eye, half a year had passed. That night, Lu Jiujia was cultivating in his house when he heard a knock on the door and without opening his eyes, said, Come in. The door was pushed open, and Jiangxi walked in, approaching Lu Jiujia to salute. What is it? Lu Jiujia asked, his tone indifferent. Jiangxi could sense the distance in his tone. Eldest senior brother, I was wrong. Xianxia suddenly knelt down, his tone somber. In Mystic Valley, there was only one master, which was Guan. Even though they were like father and son, Xianxia could only call Lu Jiujia eldest senior brother. Lu Jiujia opened his eyes and furrowed his brows. Xianxia pressed his forehead to the ground and gritting his teeth said, "Although I'm not clear what exactly master told you that day, I can feel your attitude. I admit that as a child I did wrong, but I had no choice. Before my family was annihilated by the emperor, they secretly sent me to Supreme Sect, and I had to find a way to preserve my life. At the age of 7, Mystic Valley was the most formidable place I had heard of, so He confessed all his childhood actions. Lu Jiujia was quite shocked after hearing this. He hadn't expected him to have done such things. No wonder senior brother had an issue with him. But as he listened, Lu Jiujia's feelings became complex. He saw his own reflection in Jianghu. He too had made mistakes, and if not for his senior brother's care, he would have died long ago. Although Jianghu's mistakes weren't as severe as his, he couldn't let Jianghu cling to his senior brother. After Jianghu finished speaking, Lu Jiujia sighed. Jianghu looked at Lu Jiujia, his eyes red, and did not stand up for a long time. Lu Jiujia with a complex expression said, "Don't blame your master. It's me not wanting you to cause trouble in Mystic Valley." Jianghu hurriedly replied, "How could I possibly blame him? Over the years, I've received so many elixirs in Mystic Valley. Without master's protection, how could I possibly have reached foundation establishment so quickly? It was my fault after all. If I were master, I would have expelled a disciple like me from Medicine Valley long ago." Thinking of Guan, Jianghu truly had no complaints, only more awe. He had thought that no one knew of his childhood actions, but it turned out his master knew. Knowing this, yet still not abandoning him, how could he repay kindness with resentment? In previous years, he had also seen his master. Each time, his master would nod at him with a smile. Before, he merely thought his master was kind and didn't remember him, but now, knowing that his master had long understood his past, he felt his master was truly magnanimous, with the bearing of a sage. In fact, he was disgusted with his own past actions, but he had been driven to a dead end. At that time, his family was about to be executed, and he heard that the Valley Master of Mystic Valley had a very good relationship with the great cultivator, Liya, who was also the most favored son of the current emperor, so Mystic Valley became his only path to life. Lu Jiujia looked at him with many things he wanted to say, but when the words came to his lips, he couldn't utter them. "There are two paths for you, either go to a subsect, where master will arrange a way out for you, and he will certainly not mistreat you, or stay in Mystic Valley and cultivate earnestly and temper your nature," Lu Jiujia said softly. Jianghu quickly said, "I choose to stay in Mystic Valley. I definitely won't let you and master down. Do you want to hear my story?" Lu Jiujia stared at Jianghu, his expression turning somber. Jianghu naturally wanted to listen, so Lu Jiujia began to recount his own past, starting from when he joined Supreme Sect. Meanwhile, Guan was in the hidden spirit palace at the bottom of the sea. He looked at the palace he had crafted, very satisfied. In the dim seabed, hidden spirit palace glowed a ghostly blue, its walls reflecting the wave light, with two phoenix-shaped statues standing at the main gate. He was about to walk toward hidden spirit palace when he suddenly sensed something and turned his head. In the eastern direction, a massive creature was approaching. A giant fish with a large head and small body, stretching 1,000 feet long, resembling a mountain range. It was chasing a small fish, like Mount Tai chasing a pebble. The small fish was extremely fast, darting like lightning. No matter how the giant fish chased, it just couldn't catch up. Guan's eyes narrowed, the surrounding seawater churned, luring the little fish to change direction and escape towards the hidden spirit palace. Chapter 383. Liya struck after spending half the night in the hidden spirit palace. Deep into the night, Guan returned to Mystic Valley. Most of the buildings in the valley had turned off their lights, and the disciples were practicing in the darkness. Guan turned his head towards the forests at the edge of Mystic Valley. He saw a figure practicing swordsmanship. Jianghu. For some reason, Guan suddenly felt a sense of déjà vu. He seemed to see a figure from hundreds of years ago. Back then, he had a disciple who also loved to practice swordsmanship in the forest, similarly burdened by a vendetta. Guan watched for a while, then walked towards his own loft. Back inside his room, He did not watch Xianxia practice swordsmanship again. He recalled the prior conversation between Xianxia and Lu Jiujia and had no intention of intervening. The most important aspect of being human is that everyone has their own choices to make. Guan had already warned them, and Lu Jiujia just needed to make a choice following that warning. Whatever the choice, Lu Jiujia would have to face the consequences. If Lu Jiujia insisted on suffering, then so be it. The greatest care Guan could offer to those around him was to ensure they would not die before their lifespan ended. Of course, nothing was absolute. Perhaps Xianxia could change for the better. When Guan pointed out Jiangxi's past, he had already altered their destinies. A change for better or worse, time would tell. Only in the early hours of the morning did Jiangxi return from the woods, joining the disciples for morning drills, with Guan joining in, chatting and laughing with the disciples during the drills, even jovially talking with Jiangxi without dwelling on his past. Upon learning that Guan was not willing to accept him, Jiangxi did not harbor any animosity towards Guan, indicating that his nature was not beyond redemption. Naturally, Guan would not deliberately shut him out. Of course, by doing this, Guan also hoped to encourage Jiangxi to improve, and to reduce the chances of him causing trouble for Lu Jiujia. The day passed, and Jiangxi became very compliant, no longer pleading for anything. Time flew like an arrow. 30 years passed in the blink of an eye. That day, Guan came back early from Heavenly Phoenix Mountain and stood downstairs, waiting for someone's return. Xiaoyu walked out from inside the house and stood beside him, her gaze on him, yet she remained silent with a cold expression. Guan felt uneasy under her stare and glanced at her, asking, "What's wrong?" Xiaoyu said softly, "Guan, you're really heartless, not talking to me for so many years?" Upon hearing this, Guan quickly turned around, helplessly saying, "I didn't talk to you. It's just because of your icy demeanor. I didn't dare to disturb you, and how often do you even leave the house in a year?" Xiaoyu huffed. "Don't give me that. If it were your junior sister ignoring you, you'd definitely rush to appease her." "Impossible." "Oh, really?" Xiaoyu wore an incredulous look. Guan earnestly said, "My junior sister couldn't possibly ignore me." Xiaoyu's pupils dilated slightly, and she was tempted to leave but restrained herself. Guan asked, "How has your cultivation been these years?" "I've already reached the 6th floor of the nascent soul realm." "Impressive, right?" Xiaoyu, initially annoyed, couldn't help but chuckle upon hearing this. "Indeed impressive, almost catching up to me," Xiaoyu said crisply as she contained her smile and responded coldly. Guan followed up, "What realm are you at now?" 8th floor of the unification realm." "What?" Guan widened his eyes in astonishment and asked, "How could you advance so quickly? Is cultivating to the unification realm that easy?" Xiaoyu glanced at him and said, "You think it's quick because you don't take cultivation seriously. Regardless of the era, my cultivation speed is never considered top tier." "That's true. I mean, in my eyes, you've always had an elite talent." Guan declared seriously, inwardly thinking women are really hard to please. "Praise you and you mock me, don't praise you and you get upset." The two continued to chat, with Xiaoyu intentionally easing their tense relationship, and Guan naturally went along with it. Before long, a figure flew in from the horizon. It was the person Guan was waiting for. The person flew swiftly and landed behind Guan, extending a hand towards him. Xiaoyu quickly pulled Guan towards herself, causing the hand to miss. Guan took hold of Xiaoyu's hand and turned to look. "Senior brother Li!" Guan exclaimed excitedly. Li Ya's hand hovered in the air as he looked confusedly towards Xiaoyu, not expecting her to react so quickly. Xiaoyu felt Guan squeezing her wrist but did not pull her hand away, and she calmly looked at Li Ya. Guan let go, stepping forward to enthusiastically greet Li Ya. The two exchanged pleasantries for a while, with Li Ya guiding Guan towards his loft, and Xiaoyu followed closely. As they ascended the stairs, Xiaoyu was still behind them, which made Li Ya puzzled as he looked at Xiaoyu. "Let her come along, she's one of us," Guan said with a smile. Xiaoyu's lips slightly curved upon hearing this. Li Ya felt awkward but didn't refuse. After the three entered the house, Guan began making tea for Li Ya and inquired about his experiences over the years. Xiaoyu sat on Guan's chair, and Li Ya didn't sit down immediately, narrating his experiences while scanning the furnishings in the room. Years had passed, yet there was little change in junior brother Gus' residence, evoking a rush of emotions in him. After Guan poured him a good tea, he brought over a chair and sat beside Ji Xiaoyu, listening to him recount his experiences. Hearing that he had entered the holy court, Guan couldn't help but exclaim, giving him ample face. Li Ya then spoke of the magic battle conference between the holy court and the immortal dynasty, piquing Ji Xiaoyu's interest. Guess who I saw in the camp of the immortal dynasty? And how? Surprising, isn't it? He actually joined the immortal dynasty. Li Ya remarked with emotion. Guan thought to himself that he was well aware, and he also knew that Li Ya had been defeated by him again. Li Ya, through fortuitous opportunities, had reached the mystic heart realm, and encountered An Hao in the magic battle conference. An Hao, stubborn as always, refused to use the power of divine exotic city and, unsurprisingly, was thoroughly defeated. It must be said that Li Ya was both fortunate and tragic. He could always keep up with An Hao's pace, but he just couldn't defeat him. Time and again, he was utterly crushed. Despite being in the same realm, he was no match for An Hao. Compared to Yang Jian, Li Ya seemed more like An Hao's destined rival. Did you two face off? Asked Guan. Li Ya shook his head and said, sadly no. Almost out of luck, I wanted to test his sharpness. Puff. A laugh echoed in his heart, the laugh of the divine exotic immortal spirit. He pretended not to hear it, continuing with his lamentations, unaware that Guan could hear the inner voice of divine exotic immortal spirit, who was debunking his boast to Guan. How intriguing! Li Ya began talking about the exceptional talents from both factions, and Guan would exclaim from time to time, keeping the atmosphere lively. Ji Xiaoyu didn't utter a word, listening quietly all the while. You might not believe this, but the Immortal Dynasty actually won the Magic Battle Conference. They won one more match than expected. Who knows what changes this will bring about now? If the Holy Court can't suppress the Immortal Dynasty, war might be inevitable, Li Ya sighed. He even doubted if he had chosen the wrong path. Why doesn't Hao always have such smooth sailing? Ji Xiaoyu spoke up. The talents of the Immortal Dynasty are naturally superior to ordinary people. Such competitions are advantageous for the Immortal Dynasty. The Holy Court probably let them win deliberately, aiming for a peaceful situation. If it came to a direct war, the Holy Court would win, but it would be a Pyrrhic victory, severely damaging the Holy Court. Li Ya looked at Ji Xiaoyu with surprise, not expecting her to make such an astute judgment. He knew Ji Xiaoyu's identity, and had initially thought Guan kept her nearby to remember the third young miss of the Ji family. Now it seemed, this Ji Xiaoyu was not so simple. Sensing Li Ya's amazement, Guan introduced her. This lady is no ordinary person. Not yet 400 years old, she has already attained the 8th floor of the unification realm, possessing a talent not inferior to An Hao. More than being not inferior. Ji Xiaoyu's true self was a free immortal. It would take An Hao and Li Ya at least 1,000,000 years, maybe even longer, to cultivate to a free immortal. That impressive? Li Ya's expression changed. He was genuinely shocked. Despite being a cultivator of the mystic heart realm, only he knew the sacrifices had made. His rapid increase in cultivation level wasn't due to innate talent. How has the Supreme Sect produced another remarkable genius? Li Ya resignedly said. Indeed on par with An Hao. An Hao had just achieved the Mahayana realm a few years ago, reaching it at the age of 500. It's monstrous. Miss Ji might be able to achieve Mahayana realm at the same age. He felt incredibly bitter inside. He could accept An Hao's achievement since An Hao, like him, had traveled far and faced life-threatening dangers. What about Ji Xiaoyu? Staying by Gu An's side and she could cultivate so quickly? Li Ya could hardly stay any longer. He took out 2 brocade boxes from his storage ring, saying, These are gifts I've prepared for you. Luckily, I brought an extra one, as a gift for meeting your younger sister. I have matters to discuss with the Supreme Sect, and I'll come back another time for a drink. With that, he stood up and walked towards the window. Suddenly remembering Ji Xiaoyu was still there, he turned and headed for the door. That much in a hurry? Almost forgot something important. It's urgent. All right then. Guan escorted Li Ya to the door and watched him fly away. He felt regretful. How had he managed to drive Li Ya away? Li Ya was actually his first true friend in this lifetime, and he quite missed him. If Li Ya didn't seek him out, he would have to go find Li Ya. Perhaps it was the presence of a lady that made it awkward between brothers. Guan closed the door, returned to the table, and saw Ji Xiaoyu already opening the brocade boxes. There were 2 jade pendants inside. "I want this one," Ji Xiaoyu said undebatably, her cheerfulness undisguised. Without waiting for Gu An's response, she began casting spells on the 2 jade pendants. Guan sat down on the chair Leah had just vacated, feeling a bit helpless. Leah really was speaking recklessly. Guan was meant to be an ascetic cultivator who walked unscathed through a myriad of flowers. How could he possibly tie the knot with a lady? Thinking of Hao, Guan immediately extended his divine thought towards him. Hao was still inside the holy court, in a mysterious secret realm. With Gu An's current Dao level, no formation or restriction within the holy court could obstruct him. He could even stealthily probe inside without a sound. Soon, he located Hao. "What's going on?" Guan was surprised. What great opportunity had Hao encountered inside the holy court? Chapter 384, Great Fortune of Energy Movement. Deep Sea Dragon Carp. Guan saw Hao receiving guidance from a free immortal, who was none other than the saint ancestor of the holy court. He explored Hao's karma and understood the interactions between the two. To Gu An's amazement, the saint ancestor wished to groom Hao into the next Xianxia. Hao had refused, but the saint ancestor insisted on imparting his teachings, even if Hao would not become the Xianxia. Guan couldn't help but marvel at Hao's unparalleled chi fortune. The first time he met Hao, he couldn't resist lending a hand, and for some inexplicable reason, he took a liking to the young man. Since embarking on the path of immortality, Hao had made more friends than enemies, which was key to his smooth progression. After joining the immortal dynasty, to receive the highest inheritance from the archenemy of the dynasty, the holy court, if that's not being a favored child of heaven, Guan didn't believe it. While he was reflective, this was Gu An's prized disciple, and he could not let Hao come to harm. He carefully predicted and made sure the saint ancestor wouldn't harm Hao before he could be at peace. He withdrew his divine thought and continued chatting with Ji Xiaoyu. After decades of a cold war, Ji Xiaoyu had a lot to say, as if she wanted to express all her accumulated words, and Guan, being a great conversationalist, kept her spirits high, quickly drawing out her continuous laughter. Meanwhile, in the holy court, within the Tao realm, beside a misty lake, the saint ancestor sat on a round rock, eyes opening to glimpse the occasionally visible Hao on the lake's surface, his brow furrowing. "Strange, why am I suddenly feeling uneasy?" the saint ancestor thought in surprise. Since becoming a free immortal, he hadn't had such a feeling. He could see the past and future of all things, and even if he faced an unbeatable opponent, he was confident in his escape. To say bluntly, unless his time was near, it was impossible for him to die. With such power, how could he feel such inexplicable unease? While pondering, the saint ancestor kept his eyes on Hao, his gaze filled with expectation. This world is becoming more dangerous, with more and more unpredictable people and events emerging between heaven and earth, with heavenly demons lurking from the outer heaven. How long can a free immortal maintain peace? This young man's talent is rarely seen, comparable to a Xianxia. Looking at his past, he always encounters mentors, even has the mysterious holy sword as a master. Only he could resolve the ancient irreconcilable grievances of the great heavenly spirit land. The saint ancestor's eyes gleamed brighter. From the first glance at Hao, he was attracted. This attraction was inherent, and even as a free immortal, he felt drawn to it. Of course, this attraction was just a favorable impression and would not influence his major decisions. If Hao offended him, he would not be lenient. He valued Hao because he saw him as a bearer of a great fortune of energy movement. He had encountered such a great fortune holder 2 million years ago, someone he revered and aspired to emulate. Sadly, he didn't know whether they were dead or alive now. The saint ancestor's thoughts gradually drifted to the distant past, and a blurry figure appeared in his eyes. Days later, Guan went to the main city of the sect to find Leah, and the two drank heartily for a day and a night. Indeed, with Ji Xiaoyu around, Leah found it hard to speak his mind. Only when he was alone with Guan could he let his guard down and talk about the hardships of these years. Something recently troubled him. It was his relationship with Li Xiandao. From childhood, he felt that his father, the emperor, did not like him, with this feeling intensifying after his mother's death. Now over 500 years old, he suddenly discovered Li Xiandao actually loved him deeply, even sending someone to invite him back to the imperial city. How could his feelings not be complex? Now that he knows I'm successful, he wants to win me over, not a chance. He has a genius child. Let that genius inherit his throne. What's he want with me? Leah spoke dejectedly. Guan didn't know what comfort to offer. In fact, Li Xuando's cultivation level was stronger than Li Yas, and Li Xiandao had no intention of passing the throne to his descendants. He wanted to remain emperor forever. For this reason, Guan thought that Li Xuando's invitation for Li Ya to return might be genuine. However, he couldn't intervene in other people's father-son relationships. LV Baishan's relationship with his son, LV Xian, was even worse. Over the years, LV Baitian would often tell Guan about his helplessness and regret when dealing with LV Xian. Looking at Li Ya, Guan thought he definitely should not have children. It would be too troublesome. Just thinking about the break between Long Zhan and Long Xian in the lifespan samsara gave him a headache. Even with a high cultivation level, one couldn't please everyone, especially when conflicts arose among close relatives. It only added to the emotional burden. At least Guan felt his current life was quite good, treating his disciple like a child. If the disciple courted death, he would help if possible, and if not, then so be it, with no pressure and at most heartache. Senior brother, do you know how Xiao Chuan spent his last 100 years? Guan suddenly asked. Li Ya was startled, naturally remembering Xiao Chuan. He frowned and asked, Xiao Chuan died. Guan nodded and said, yes, it happened many years ago. In his final years, he was entangled by his descendants' troubles, affecting his cultivation, but he had no regrets, even enjoying it. Li Ya frowned. Guan reflected, blood is thicker than water, it's not just a saying. Think about it. Did your father ever mistreat you? Suppressed you? At most he was just not that caring. It's not so atrociously evil requiring a severance of father-son relations, right? You're a well-known cultivator, and each time you leave, many years pass before you return. Sometimes, I'm not even sure when will be the last time I see you. Maybe your father thinks similarly, fearing to leave regrets. Listening to Gu An's words, Li Ya opened his mouth but finally just sighed. He knew Li Xiandao had limited talent, now only at the nascent soul realm, and Gu An's words made sense. When I leave next time, I might not return for hundreds of years. At that moment, Li Ya felt loneliness as well as fear. He feared that many years later, he would be left alone in the world, without family or friends. Li Ya looked at Guan and asked, Junior brother Gu, how about you come with me to the holy court to cultivate? I'll find a way for you to stay there. His tone was resolute since in his life, he had made many acquaintances, but most of them had been relationships of convenience. Guan was his first true friend. There had been another person before, Zhang Buku, but his whereabouts were unknown, with his life or death uncertain. Li Ya thought of the scene where Guan would die, and he felt terrible even if it were a peaceful death. I'd rather not. Isn't going to the holy court just asking for trouble? Oh brother, don't overthink it. Maybe I have a natural destiny to live a long life of 10,000 years? Guan shook his head, and his easy smile made Li Ya feel even more distressed. Why should someone as good as junior brother Gu be limited by his talent, while someone as arrogant as Hao can always laugh last? Li Ya felt that the heavens were so unfair. Forget it, let's just drink. Guan urged and started looking forward to the scene thousands of years later, when Li Ya would find that he still wasn't dead. Sorry brother, but your junior is bound to live longer than anyone. Li Ya only stayed at the Supreme Sect for a month before leaving. Guan, with a spectator's amusement, spied on Li Yas return to the imperial city. As he expected, the meeting between Li Ya and Li Xiandao was extremely awkward. Even though Li Xiandao tried hard to force a smile, he couldn't dissolve the awkwardness between father and son. However, the fact that the two could sit down and talk was a good start. It's worth mentioning that Li Ya's first encounter with his younger brother Li Lingtian was unpleasant. The brothers fought, and henceforth, Li Lingtian had one more opponent he wanted to defeat. Royal family affairs are really complicated. Guan felt this way at the moment. Until the end of the year, Guan saw another family matter. The Ji family came to find Ji Xiaoyu, wanting her to return to the family, but she refused, causing a stiff conflict. Unlike in her previous life, Ji Xiaoyu had grown up this time and had become even tougher, beyond the control of the Ji family. Li Yas and Ji Xiaoyu's situations further solidified Gu An's resolve not to start a family. At least not for now. Guan hadn't yet achieved longevity and had many enemies to surpass. How could he be hindered by familial ties? If he already had family, he would naturally take great care of them. But since he didn't, there was no need to deliberately create familial bonds to satisfy emotional needs. Another new year arrived, bidding farewell to the old and welcoming the new. After several days of festivity, Guan visited the hidden spirit palace alone. Over the years, this place continuously produced low-rank medical herbs, allowing Guan to harvest them each time he visited. He had just started collecting when he furrowed his brows. Why has it come again? He talked to himself. Only he and his clone were in the dojo of the hidden spirit palace, and his clone couldn't communicate with him. He was referring to a very fast little fish that approached the dojo every now and then. Even though his clone cast spells to drive it away, it never gave up. It seemed that the more he drove it away, the more it was attracted to this place. Guan decided to teach the little fish a lesson. He stood up and walked to an open area nearby. With a thought, a 1-meter-long fish appeared in front of him, and he stepped on it to pin it down. It was a goldfish resembling a carp, with scales brighter than gold and quite handsome. Its eyes were like gems. The goldfish widened its eyes, looking completely bewildered. Deep Sea Dragon Carp, Unification Realm, Second Layer 8504/12,000/15,000. To have lived 8,500 years and still be so small. Guan found it curious, as most demons grew larger as their cultivation level increased. Heavenly demons like Tian Yaoer, Tian Qing, and Tian Bai had very large true forms. The deep sea dragon carp started to struggle violently, but no matter how it thrashed, it couldn't free itself from Gu An's foot. Under Gu An's suppression, it seemed to have no cultivation, making little noise and not posing any threat to nearby medicinal herbs. Guan took out the Qinghong sword, looking like he was about to kill it. The deep-sea dragon carp shut its eyes in terror and trembled incessantly. To Gu An's amusement, he saw tears streaming from its eyes, resembling pearls as they squeezed out. Scared now? Will you dare to swim here again? Guan asked. The deep-sea dragon carp opened its eyes and hurriedly shook its head. Guan suddenly frowned, hesitating. But you've already discovered my dojo. Letting you escape might bring me trouble later. Never mind. I'd better eat you. Should I steam you, or should I grill you? The deep-sea dragon carp's eyes widened in extreme fear, and its tears streamed down. Chapter 385. Fated Destiny. The deep-sea dragon carp did not understand what steaming meant, nor did it grasp the concept of char-grilling, but its cultivation level was not low, and it could sense the hostility in Gu An's voice, which filled it with extreme panic. Guan watched it cry incessantly, and he felt amused. Such a coward, and yet it deliberately sought out danger. How peculiar. Wait a minute. Could this fellow be like Zhu Shi, who also loved to act? Guan decided to teach it a harsh lesson, so he cast an illusion on it. Immediately afterward, the deep-sea dragon carp saw a fish that looked exactly like itself being steamed, then char-grilled. When it saw the char-grilling, its fish skin was scorched black, crisped up, and oozed oil. It could not take it anymore. Accompanied by a spasm, the deep-sea dragon carp at Gu An's feet fainted dead away. It's this weak. Guan used his foot to flip the deep-sea dragon carp's body, and seeing that it remained motionless, he felt even more exasperated. After hesitating for a moment, Guan moved the deep-sea dragon carp to a distant part of the sea. If you come back, you're certainly dead. If you dare to reveal my location, your end will be even more miserable than what you've seen. Guan transmitted his words into the deep-sea dragon carp's mind. Given the realm of the deep-sea dragon carp, when it awoke, even if it did not understand the language of the human race, it would still understand what Guan meant to express. As the clouds dispersed, beside the great lake, and Hao stood with his back to the Saint Ancestor, gazing up at the sky. The Saint Ancestor looked at Hao with increasing satisfaction in his eyes, as if viewing a rare treasure. I never thought you could master the heavenly Tao divine record so quickly. Given time, there will be no one in this world who can rival you, the Saint Ancestor praised. And Hao turned his head and glanced at the Saint Ancestor from the corner of his eye, asking, Has Xingtan managed to master this skill? The Saint Ancestor replied, Of course, but you will surpass him sooner or later. Upon hearing this, and Hao fell into contemplation. Having mastered the heavenly Tao divine record, he deeply understood the strength of this skill, which gave him a greater appreciation for Xianxia's might. Even in the immortal dynasty, all immortals deemed the holy court's Xianxia the strongest in the world. How powerful must one be to win the respect even from rival forces regarding one's strength? I must leave now. Thank you, Senior, for your teachings. I will never forget this kindness, and Hao said. He turned around and bowed to the Saint Ancestor. The Saint Ancestor asked, "Will you make an enemy of the Holy Court in the future?" And Hao looked at him and answered, "I am not sure. No one can predict the future. However, I can assure you, I will not make enemies with the Holy Court on behalf of the immortal dynasty. My joining was solely for the pursuit of greater strength." The Saint Ancestor nodded smiling and said, "Junior, may you attain nirvana early. Once you do, you will awaken your true power and feel the force of the heavenly Tao, the supreme way in this world." And Hao acknowledged, then turned and leaped, transforming into a white light that sped away, disappearing into the distant clouds in the blink of an eye. The Saint Ancestor watched his departure with a sense of wonder, musing, "I thought this was a declining epoch, but now it seems to be the sign of a prosperous era. Who knows, looking back in 1,000,000 years, what myths will have emerged?" While the Saint Ancestor was ruminating, Guan was also reflecting. Inside the hidden spirit palace. Standing on the path between the medicine gardens, Guan looked into the distance, murmuring, "This guy really is persistent." He was referring to the deep-sea dragon carp. Since their last encounter, 60 years had passed. After several days of silence, the deep-sea dragon carp began its search for the hidden spirit palace, a quest that lasted for 60 years. Over those 60 years, most of the disciples from the Third Medicine Valley and Mystic Valley had changed, and in the mundane world, several generations had passed on. The deep-sea dragon carp, having traversed many seas and faced countless dangers, finally arrived in the sea area of the hidden spirit palace. Now it was covered in wounds, its scales no longer the resplendent sheen of old. Here a few were missing, there some were gone, presenting a very pitiful sight. Its will moved Guan. He could discern that throughout those years, the deep-sea dragon carp had not divulged his or the hidden spirit palace's existence to other demon creatures. Without probing for information, the creature had managed to find its way here. It seemed to possess hidden talents unknown to all. Under normal circumstances, given the distance, even a Mahayana realm might have difficulty finding the hidden spirit palace in 60 years. Ah well. Guan shook his head and continued to pick medicinal herbs. He opened his attribute panel while gathering the herbs. Name, Guan. Lifespan, 612/958, 702, 371. Physique. Mixed Yuan refined void body. Cultivation level, Taoist hidden immortal realm perfect. Almost 10 billion years of lifespan. Awesome. Guan was in high spirits. This was lifespan he had earned through hard work, not through theft or slaughter, and he felt a great sense of accomplishment. The world was stirring with excitement. Great powers and geniuses were emerging one after another, while he quietly developed his strength, watching the struggles of the world. He was racing toward longevity at an even faster pace, and the feeling was exhilarating. The more he thought about it, the happier Guan became, and he couldn't help but hum a tune. After he finished gathering the medicinal herbs, he returned to the Supreme Sect. The deep-sea dragon carp had just entered the region. It would take another month or two to get near the hidden spirit palace, so he was not in a hurry to meet it. If the deep-sea dragon carp were to die on this last stretch of road, it would indicate that such fortune was not in its destiny, and no one could be blamed for that. Returning to the Third Medicine Valley just after midday, the hot summer breeze blew into the valley, and sunlight shone on the 7 stars mirror in Guan's hand, refracting a dazzling light. Guan used the 7 stars mirror as a fan, leisurely strolling forward while waving it to cool down. An Xian suddenly ran over, stopping in front of him, and said, "Master, Wu Ju is in trouble." Guan asked, "What happened?" "Today I went to the inner sect city and heard that he has been thrown into the dungeon of the Supreme Sect, apparently for harming a fellow sect member," an Xian replied quickly. Upon hearing this, Guan furrowed his brow and said, "I'll go to the inner sect." After speaking, he turned and left. An Xian breathed a sigh of relief. Telling his master about the situation was enough. With his master's capabilities, resolving it wouldn't be difficult. Less than half an hour later, Guan, following the guidance of a dungeon disciple, reached the 7th floor underground. Having been with the Supreme Sect for 600 years, this was his first visit to this place. As the Supreme Sect grew stronger, the restrictions of the dungeon steadily increased. It was said that the 18th underground floor imprisoned an immortal. The dungeon disciple halted in front of a cell, briefly explained a few things, and then turned and left. Moving beyond the 5th floor underground was not something just anyone could decide to do. Guan had pulled some strings, so the dungeon disciple was quite courteous to him. The cell was made from special redwood, its surface carved with talismans and containing multiple layers of restrictions. Guan looked inside the cell door. It was dim inside, and Wu Ju, with his hair disheveled, leaned against the wall, sleeping. Inside the dungeon, cultivation was not possible. Spiritual energy was cut off, and Wu Ju had become noticeably thinner. Guan had known when Wu Ju had been caught, but he was not worried about Wu Ju's death given the protections within the Supreme Sect, so he didn't come earlier. When an Xian found Guan, from the standpoint of causality logic, Guan should visit Wu Ju, too. Guan, who studied the way of cause and effect, began to see the causality in the world as a game. He was willing to abide by the rules of the game unless the game annoyed him, at which point he would change it. "Brother Wu, I've come to see you," Guan said, simultaneously casting a lifespan detection on Wu Ju. Wu Ju, Unification Realm 5th floor 614/4500/8300. His maximum lifespan finally increased. This kid really needed to experience hardship to reach path enlightenment. Everything coming too easily was not good. The Wu Ju in the dark slowly opened his eyes. His vision was blurred, only able to make out a silhouette outside the cell door. After Guan called out to him again, Wu Ju's vision suddenly became clear. "Brother Gu." Wu Ju looked at Guan, his face full of shame, not knowing what to say. He was still very touched. The crime he had committed was serious, and the Feng family had formidable influence, leading the Supreme Sect to abandon him. Those friends of his had been avoiding him like the plague. Having been imprisoned for so long, Guan was the first to visit him. How could he not be moved? "Why aren't you speaking? Do you not recognize me?" Guan feigned seriousness as he asked. He had already deduced the incident regarding Wu Ju killing a fellow member. The incident couldn't be entirely blamed on Wu Ju. The fellow member was also a genius of the Supreme Sect, who had borne a grudge against Wu Ju for a previous defeat and disliked him. After Wu Ju was defeated by Zhou Tongyu, he went out to gain experience and encountered the genius. Taking advantage of his numbers, he mocked Wu Ju as inferior to Zhou Tongyu, wasting the sect's investment. Wu Ju was not one to be bullied easily. An argument broke out between them, which escalated into a fight. The other party bore the intent to kill, leading Wu Ju to retaliate with full force, and eventually, a tragedy occurred. Since there were other sect members present, Wu Ju chose to return to the sect and report the incident, but those sect members turned against him, claiming Wu Ju struck first. And so, Wu Ju was thrown into the dungeon, tarnishing his reputation. Regardless, Wu Ju indeed had killed a fellow sect member, and as a righteous path sect, such a crime was truly unforgivable in the eyes of the Supreme Sect. Wu Ju felt he had made a mistake and was too ashamed to face Guan. "I don't disown you, it's just that I'm too ashamed to face you," said Wu Ju, taking a deep breath and attempting to stay calm. Ever since he became known as a genius, too many people flocked around him, all of whom were nice to him. Along with being at different stages, Wu Ju met with Guan less and less. Sometimes, he would even forget Guan was his most important brother. Now that he had fallen, all those close friends refused to see him, yet it was Guan who came. In that moment, Wu Ju was filled with self-mockery. "What exactly happened?" Guan asked, pulling Wu Ju out from his dejection. Wu Ju calmed himself and began to recount the events and the reasons behind them. After a while, when Wu Ju finished speaking, Guan stayed silent for a moment, then said, "It cannot all be blamed on you. Didn't anyone upstairs believe you?" Wu Ju replied helplessly, "How could they believe it? It's not like they can use soul-searching skill on those people, and even if they did it to me, how many would be willing to believe?" Guan said, "No problem, I will speak to the sect leader about it." Wu Ju responded, "The sect leader has already spoken with me, asking me to bide my time until the controversy settles somewhat, and then he will find a way." As the Supreme Sect grew stronger, LV Batian, being the sect leader, found his authority diminishing. Guan comforted him. "No problem, I will speak with him again. If that doesn't work, I will ask others to speak up as well. I refuse to believe that the so-called Sheng family can have their way all alone within the supreme sect. Chapter 386. The sect with 10 million disciples. Upon hearing Gu An's words of comfort, Wu Ju could only offer a bitter smile. An amused chuckle came from a nearby cell. Covering the sky with one hand? The Sheng family really has such capability. Guan turned his head to look and saw an old man with white hair approaching the edge of the prison cell, his hands bony and clutching the mahogany bars. He looked at Guan with a face full of scorn. Guan feigned a frown and asked, "Could it be that you are also from the Shang family?" The old man laughed and said, "If I were from the Shang family, how would I have ended up like this? Like your friend, I offended the Shang family, and even the Hall of Elders told me to lay low for a while. I've been locked up for a century now, and I fear I will spend the rest of my days here, waiting for the day the Shang family sheathes their butcher's blade." After listening, Wu Ju slightly lowered his head. Guan angrily said, "I refuse to believe it. Is the Shang family really so tyrannical? I am going to find the sect leader now." With those words, he left with a swish of his sleeve. Wu Ju opened his mouth but in the end said nothing. Deep down, he too harbored a glimmer of hope. The third Medicine Valley was a place of hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The socially adept Guan might indeed find a way. After Gu An's presence faded from the dungeon level, Wu Ju began to worry. He suddenly feared that if this did not succeed, it might instead implicate Guan. "Wu Ju, isn't it? I didn't expect you to have such a naive friend. Shouldn't the side of a genius be surrounded by hypocrisy?" The old man said in a mocking tone. Wu Ju didn't respond, too weary to engage with him. Wu Ju was already familiar with the man's toxic tongue, and he disdained to argue with such people. He seemed dejected, yet deep down, he held a confidence. He was still capable of enlightenment. If no one stood up for him one day, he would uphold justice for himself. Meanwhile, after leaving the dungeon, Guan did not go directly to find LV Batian. Considering Wu Ju could find enlightenment, it was better to let him reflect for more time. Guan wandered around the inner sect city, meeting disciples who had graduated 200 years ago and probing information about the Shang family. He could divine outcomes, but he preferred to immerse himself in this grudge and investigate in an ordinary capacity. If that failed, then he could only win by virtue. Gu An's disciples were spread throughout the supreme sect. While it was said he was discerning about the Shang family, in reality, he was enjoying free meals and drinks. Having wandered all day, he felt satisfied body and soul. From today's findings, the Shang family indeed held significant power. There were many clans within the supreme sect, but few could stand out and incite fear as they did. The disciples were fearful that Guan would offend the Shang family. Upon understanding why he was investigating the Shang family, they all advised him to stay out of it. When Guan returned to the third Medicine Valley, it was already night. Lights shone brightly in the valley, and from a distance, Guan could hear the laughter and cheer of the disciples. Guan felt relieved. Thankfully, the powerful clans within the supreme sect had not jeopardized his Medicine Valley. If they had, blood would have flown like rivers. Guan stopped at the base of his own building but didn't go up immediately. Instead, he knocked on Ji Xiaoyu's door. "Come in." Ji Xiaoyu's pleasant voice echoed from inside, and Guan pushed the door open, then closed it behind him. As he approached Ji Xiaoyu, she curiously asked, "It's rare for you to seek me out proactively. Is something the matter?" "What kind of question is that? Can't I visit you without a reason? Weren't you the one who blamed me for not taking the initiative to see you for decades?" Guan said dissatisfiedly, about to turn around and leave. Sitting on the bed, Ji Xiaoyu quickly grabbed his wrist. "Of course you can visit. Come, sit down," Ji Xiaoyu said gently with a smile, pulling Guan to sit next to her. Guan grunted, "I saw your place was bright and lively, and something just drove me to come have a chat with you, but your first words angered me quite a bit." "Oh my, can't I admit my mistake?" Ji Xiaoyu replied helplessly. How could he suddenly become so childish? But it was quite amusing. Such were Ji Xiaoyu's thoughts as her lips curved upward involuntarily. Guan then smiled and said, "That's more like it. Today, I saw Wu Ju, and he began to recount Wu Ju's trials, with Ji Xiaoyu listening attentively because she remembered Wu Ju well. After Guan finished talking about Wu Ju's situation, he continued with his interactions with other disciples. For the first half hour, Guan did all the talking. Ji Xiaoyu then figured out his intention. Surely, he wasn't seeking her help, was he? In the end, Guan lamented, even within the Supreme Sect, injustice exists. Fortunately, our Medicine Valley keeps a low profile and serves the Supreme Sect undisturbed. Why are these clans so overbearing, and might they one day surpass the Supreme Sect? Ji Xiaoyu responded, it's possible, but difficult. If it comes to that, the Supreme Sect might just become one of their subordinate forces. The stronger the Supreme Sect, the more hopeless it becomes for those disciples caught in dire straits, Guan sighed. He then stood up and said, we've talked for so long, you should continue cultivating now. Your future is not limited by the Supreme Sect. After speaking, he walked away. Ji Xiaoyu watched his departing figure, wanting to say something but hesitated. Once the door was closed, she couldn't help but mutter, he only visits when he needs something, and he even expects me to apologize while seeking my help? She shook her head and chuckled, then took out a piece of talisman paper and began to write. As soon as Guan sat down, he saw a white dove's phantom flying away through the window, disappearing into the night sky in the blink of an eye. Guan's mouth curved up. He thought to himself, not bad, quite sensible. Several days later, LV Batian came to Guan, accompanied by an old acquaintance, Vice Sect Leader Ji Hantian. The three sat down in the room. Bang! Ji Hantian suddenly slammed the table and cursed. The Shang family truly goes too far. Those overseas families really haven't integrated the principles of the righteous path of the Supreme Sect into their ideology. LV Batian's eyelids twitched, and he said in a deep voice, why are you yelling? I'm outraged. You give the order to suppress the Shang family, and I'll absolutely support you. Why don't you give the order? The Ji family has good relations with the Shang family. I'm caught in the middle, it's difficult for me. It sounds as if the LV family hasn't benefited from the Shang family either. We are both in tough positions. Watching them pass the buck, Guan found it amusing but also felt that the Supreme Sect had become somewhat superficial. Indeed, with the rapid expansion of the Supreme Sect, the cultivation levels of native high-ranking members couldn't keep up with the pace of the sect, naturally diluting their power. Guan spoke up, suddenly, I feel like writing a book. Ji Hantian's eyes lit up, that's a good idea, Pan-An's influence is still considerable. Guan glanced at him and said, I'll write that the Shang family is a powerful clan that the Ji family and LV family fear. Ji Hantian glared and said, Guan, don't joke around. Guan asked, I understand why the sect leader is here, but Elder Ji, why have you come? Ji Hantian huffed. It's all because of you. That girl Ji Xiaoyu is actually helping you, so I had no choice but to come myself. Guan immediately felt somewhat annoyed. When the third miss was forced to go to the 7-star spirit realm, you couldn't stop it. Now Ji Xiaoyu asks you for help, and you face difficulties again. The Ji family is strong, but it feels like it's all about making compromises? At this remark, Ji Hantian's expression instantly darkened. Guan then opened a drawer, took out the fate-determining pen, and from a stack of papers beside him, he pulled out a sheet of white paper. Seeing the two argue, LV Batian intervened, I also trust in Wu Ju, but the Shang family lost a disciple, one considered among the top 3 talents of this generation. We must provide an explanation to the Shang family, and I assure you I won't let anything happen to Wu Ju. Regardless of his relationship with Guan, in the years where Guan had strategized, he truly felt that the strength of the Supreme Sect today could not be separated from Guan's contributions. Guan remained silent, writing down names on the paper. All individuals related to the Wu Ju incident, including those from the Shang family and others. They knew the truth but were pushing Wu Ju towards an abyss. If they were compelled, that would be one thing. But the conflict began with them following the Shang family genius in insulting Wu Ju and even attacking him. Their lies were to protect themselves. Choosing to be lapdogs and bullying others, they should prepare for the backlash. What are you doing? LV Batian frowned and asked. Guan continued writing without speaking, making him genuinely afraid that Guan might do something foolish. He solemnly said, the Shang family has a loose immortal. Do you know how high a loose immortal's cultivation level is? If the path of immortality were smooth, you'd have to cultivate for tens of thousands of years. The Supreme Sect hasn't had an immortal live that long. Tens of thousands of years. This phrase weighed heavily, making LV Batian and Jianghu feel immense pressure just thinking about the age of the Shang family's loose immortal. Guan lifted his pen, gazing down at the names on the paper, and said with discontent, "I hate my own powerlessness. If I were an immortal, how could I stand by and watch my close friend suffer?" After saying this, he gripped the fate-determining pen and made 2 strokes on the paper, drawing a large X as if to vent his frustration. LV Batian tried to comfort him. "Don't think like that, and besides, the Shang family is just angry but hasn't pressed me any further." Guan looked at him. "Do you remember what I told you hundreds of years ago, when you were still Elder Tian?" Upon hearing this, LV Batian immediately fell silent. Jianghu spoke earnestly. "Guan, don't act impulsively. If we mess up, all 3 of us could be in trouble. We could be abandoned by our families, you could be abandoned by the Supreme Sect. All these are possible." Guan said, "Fine, I understand. I'll pretend I don't know about this matter." Seeing his indifferent expression, LV Batian was somewhat uneasy and asked, "Really? I am but a nascent soul realm cultivator. I can't break into dungeons or step through the Shang family's gate. What can I do?" Guan replied. LV Batian, after hearing this, could only sigh. "I won't see you out, but I'll remember what you've said." While speaking, Guan pulled out a book from beside him. LV Batian wanted to say more, but Jianghu tugged at him, and after exchanging glances, they stood up and left. Although Guan felt somewhat disappointed, he could also understand. Not everyone had the same confidence as him. Nonetheless, he had already taken action. What happened next depended on how these 2 responded. If they didn't handle it well, they too should consider moving aside. This had nothing to do with personal connections. The Supreme Sect leader and Vice-Sect leader needed people with greater breadth of spirit to take on these roles, for the Supreme Sect was not just any clan's sect, but a sect of millions of disciples. Chapter 387. The final road. LV Batian and another left, and after about half a month, rumors suddenly spread throughout the Supreme Sect. A group of crazed disciples were proclaiming throughout the inner sect city the incident of Shang family's genius bullying Wu Ju, and consequently being killed in retaliation. The matter of Wu Ju killing a fellow sect member had already caused a huge uproar, and now these disciples were telling a different story, so how could it not provoke controversy? Even though those disciples were quickly controlled, the news still spread rapidly. Through the investigation of curious disciples, it turned out that the crazed group was originally the witness of Wu Ju's fratricide. Now having seemingly lost their minds, they presented a different testimony from before, forcing people to consider the possibility of a conspiracy. Some suspected that someone behind Wu Ju had acted, others speculated that these individuals could no longer bear the psychological pressure and feigned insanity to reveal the truth, while some even believed that they had initially been poisoned by the Shang family and were compelled to lie. But now that the effects of the poison were manifesting, they had lost their sanity and were revealing the truth with their last bit of lucidity. Opinions were varied, and Wu Ju once again became a center of attention within the Supreme Sect. The incident grew so significant that even members of the subsect such as Yilan and Zhenqin came to find Guan, fearing he might get dragged into it. The Shang family is truly ruthless, to actually poison someone. Tisk. Even the subsect is discussing this now. Wu Ju is regarded as a top genius of the Supreme Sect, yet he lacks a family background. If this matter isn't handled well, those disciples without a family background will feel disheartened, Zhenqin remarked astonishingly. Yilan was rather calm, saying, "Which sect could maintain peace over hundreds of years? There's always some troublemaker. Sword Venerable Fudao hasn't appeared for many years. It might be that the nobles are testing his attitude." Holding a book, Guan focused his divine thought on the distant ocean. The deep-sea dragon carp was being pursued by a group of demon creatures, in grave danger. This guy too had gone through 81 difficulties, just one short of completion. Zhenqin tossed her hair casually and said, "Let them create chaos, it's about time." Guan looked at her and asked, "How about you? Have you been dealing with the ghost mother of ephemera lately?" Upon hearing the name Ghost Mother of Ephemera, Zhenqin's smile vanished, and she snorted, "I'm no match for her. I can't trouble Senior Jiang anymore, I can only cultivate first." Fueled by her hatred for Su Han, Zhenqin's zeal in cultivation remained high, which also made her innate reincarnation skills quite effective. That's good. It's not easy for Jianghu either. After saving you, she must be feeling quite awkward facing her own deputy sect master. Guan continued her thoughts. Xianxia nodded, then changed the subject. I heard from a master that the Yuanshu ancestor truly opened up a reincarnation realm right in the heavens, but who really knows what reincarnation is like? Speaking of reincarnation, Guan thought of Xiaochuan, who had been in the reincarnation vortex for a long time without reincarnating, at least within the great heavenly spirit land. Guan temporarily couldn't track his destruction Dao seal. Could he have reincarnated into another great heaven and earth? Is a divine thought true immortal that powerful? If there really is a reincarnation, I'm quite looking forward to it, just afraid that in reality, there is no reincarnation. If every person is reincarnated, then where did the original souls come from? Yilan raised a question. The two women began to explore the subject of reincarnation, intentionally avoiding the topic of Wu Ju. Guan chimed in occasionally, and time passed quickly. As evening approached, the two women left. Guan then departed from the Third Medicine Valley, first heading to Mystic Valley, planning to stay for an ancient hour before heading to Hidden Spirit Palace. Upon arriving in Mystic Valley, he saw disciples gathered together, listening to an older disciple talking about the Shang family, with Jianghu standing in front of a tree, also listening intently. The issue with the Shang family had become so explosive that disciples from every tier were discussing it. The reason those disciples went mad was not actually related to the Shang family. It was Guan who used the power of cause and effect to torment those disciples, continually making them witness the tragedy of that Shang family genius. Over time, unable to escape the illusion realm, they had collapsed. As for revealing the truth about the Wu Ju, it was also guided by Guan using the power of cause and effect. At this very moment, the Shang family was in turmoil, the higher-ups were overwhelmed, discussing how to handle the situation. Guan walked towards his disciples and joined them to watch the excitement and discuss. Upon seeing Guan, Jianghu immediately sat down, behaving very cautiously. Decades had passed, and he still looked forward to cultivating with Guan. Even though he had reached the core formation realm, he had no thought of leaving Mystic Valley. The more this was the case, the less Guan wanted to accept him. He had deduced Jianghu's karma and found no great cultivator plotting, which made Guan even more uneasy. Why had Jianghu set his sights on him? Could it be the workings of the heavenly Tao setting him up for a calamity? Jianghu didn't know what Guan was thinking. He stayed in Mystic Valley because he feared being pursued by the Imperial family and the Li family. Without the strength to protect himself, he didn't want to leave Mystic Valley. As for Guan, although he felt that this master was no ordinary person, he didn't think in the direction of Sword Venerable Fudao. To him, Sword Venerable Fudao was just a vague legend. Except for Lu Jiujia, all Mystic Valley disciples in their lifetime had never seen Sword Venerable Fudao act. They harbored doubts, suspecting that Sword Venerable Fudao might not even exist. After a long chat, Guan finally stood up and left, and the disciples dispersed. Watching Guan disappear into the forest, Jianghu turned his head and quickly went to Lu Jiujia's side, whispering, "Senior brother, where is master going so late? Why is he always going out?" He had been puzzled by this for 100 years and had long wanted to ask. Lu Jiujia glanced at him and said, "Mind less about where your master goes." Jianghu hastily apologized. Lu Jiujia paid him no more attention and walked towards his own house. Once seated cross-legged on his bed, he gazed out at the bright moon, a look of melancholy in his eyes. Lately, he had been increasingly feeling weak, a tiredness beyond words, always feeling that once he closed his eyes, his life would be over. He began to understand that the so-called imminent end could indeed be perceived. His days might be numbered, and he needed to think about how to settle his affairs. If he were to die, who should he leave the position of eldest disciple to? Who could serve his senior brothers as well as he did? He immediately ruled out Jianghu. He wouldn't choose a disciple his senior brother disliked for his position. On the other hand, Guan arrived at the Hidden Spirit Palace and saw that the deep-sea dragon carp had finally escaped danger, hiding in a cave under the sea. After confirming it was safe, it fainted. "You escaped a calamity, let your final journey be easy," Guan murmured to himself, then flicked his hand, sending a spell through the sea in a way incomprehensible to mortal spirits, entering the body of the deep-sea dragon carp to help it recover from its injuries and regain its demonic power. Afterward, he began picking medicinal herbs. After picking the medicinal herbs, he didn't leave. Instead, He stayed in the Hidden Spirit Palace and read. The Hidden Spirit Palace housed a great collection of books, all of which were his prized possessions. When he wanted to be alone, he would come here. Chapter 388. The strongest immortal dynasty. The night deepened, and the Hidden Spirit Palace, located at the depths of the sea floor, fell into tranquility. Guan lay on a chair, holding a book in one hand, while occasionally the sound of the ocean's tides and the cries of mysterious demon beasts echoed in his ears, like a symphony that brought peace to his mind. Time rapidly slipped away in such an atmosphere. Guan set his book aside, stood up, stretched lazily, and looked outside the Hidden Spirit Palace, where he saw the deep-sea dragon carp again embarking on the journey to find the Hidden Spirit Palace. There should be no problem with the journey ahead, as there were no formidable demon creatures blocking the path. Guan watched for a while, then left the Hidden Spirit Palace and returned to the Supreme Sect. The case of Wu Ju was still the most prominent concern within the Supreme Sect, with many righteous hearts demanding that the sect thoroughly investigate the reasons behind the madness of those disciples, and if their claims were true, Wu Ju must be granted justice. How could other disciples not panic when even a talent like Wu Ju could be slandered, suppressed, or even potentially killed? This was happening right beside them. There were even disciples who publicly called out in the inner sect city, seeking to rally the sense of justice in other disciples, holding the Righteousness and Demons, written by Pan En, a book that documented the sword Venerable Fudeo's efforts to quell internal strife within the Supreme Sect. With this book in hand, even the disciples from the law enforcement hall dared not apprehend him. While Guan used his divine thought to observe the disciples' public address, he walked into the Third Medicine Valley. Some disciples had already introduced the issue to the Medicine Valley, prompting other disciples to join in discussions. The storm was growing bigger. This pleased Guan. Perhaps the higher-ups were worried that this matter would bring unrest to the Supreme Sect, but Guan was not afraid. He had feelings for the Supreme Sect and did not wish to see it become the sect of a single family, especially since this family was a newcomer from overseas. Wasn't this like a dove taking over a magpie's nest? Now it remained to be seen how the Supreme Sect would confront the pressure from the disciples. Guan did not join in the discussions of the disciples and returned to his attic alone. On the other side, within a dimly lit hall, LV Batian, Xianxia, and 3 great cultivators sat around a long table, looking very grim. These 3 great cultivators were from the venerable pavilion of the Supreme Sect, which towered above the Hall of Elders. Despite years of development and foreign forces diluting the power of various halls within the Supreme Sect, the venerable pavilion remained under the control of the original families, which was their bottom line. Gugwa took a deep breath and said, "The situation has escalated beyond concealment. It's time to put pressure on the Shang family." The aged Jianghu stroked his beard and said, "Indeed, pressure must be applied, but the question is how. Shang Tianzong is already furious and even hopes that we defend the image of the Shang family." The venerable who replaced Zhou Yu, coming from the LV family and named LV Lai, had a gloomy face and remained silent. LV Batian glanced at LV Lai with a flicker of displeasure in his eyes. Jianghu, known for his explosive temper and inability to hold back, glared at the 3 venerables and said, "At this point, we should stop passing the buck around. We are all in this together, and if the Supreme Sect does nothing, we will be the first to suffer. If we don't suppress the Shang family now, other families will certainly trample over us." His attitude was starkly different from when he faced Guan, fearing at that time that Guan would be exposed to the Shang family. If only Sword Venerable Fudao could take action, how wonderful that would be. LV Lai suddenly spoke up. LV Batian glared at him and said, "What, should we disturb him over such a trivial matter? Have you forgotten his current status? He is now the Holy Sword of the Holy Court. Even the colossal Star Sea congregations appear insignificant before him." LV Lai shook his head and remained silent. Gugwa pondered, "Investigate the Shang family thoroughly. This is a good opportunity. It's rare for the Shang family to make a mistake, and we can use this to suppress the influence of other overseas families. Think carefully. How could those disciples be driven mad by the Shang family? Even if it were true, the Shang family would never let them out. The talent of Wu Ju is no small matter, and he rose from humble beginnings. Throughout history, where have there been so many strokes of luck? Anyone who rises from obscurity has surely the backing of a great power behind them." Jianghu looked at Gugwa with brightened eyes and asked, Do you mean that Wu Ju has the support of Sword Venerable Fu Dao behind him? Gu Gua replied. It's not impossible. Think about it, the Supreme Sect is not some geomantic treasure land. Who among the past geniuses wasn't related to him? He wouldn't care about the small affairs of the Supreme Sect, but he would definitely step in if it involved the overall spirit of the sect. This group of disciples who inexplicably went mad is the best proof. Upon hearing this, everyone fell silent. The shadows on their faces gradually dispersed. If they had the support of Sword Venerable Fu Dao, what was there to fear? Perhaps he is also watching our actions. If we, Gu Gua continued, leaving his sentence unfinished, but everyone understood his implication. Following his train of thought, the others were shocked and felt a chill run down their spines. Ji Huntian slammed the table and said, Then what are we waiting for? Let's do it now. I'll take the lead. With that, he disappeared from the room in an instant. The rest looked at each other, and Ji Hengshi gave a wry smile. Will his temperament ever change? Change? Maybe in the next lifetime. I'm off as well. LV Batian laughed and stood up to leave, vanishing as well. The three venerable pavilion members did not linger long, vanishing from their seats simultaneously. An hour later, a piece of news shook the Supreme Sect. The venerable pavilion ordered a thorough investigation of the Shang family, and deployed a large number of disciples to surround the Shang family's residence. As soon as this news came out, cheers erupted in the cities of the Supreme Sect. The truth had yet to be verified, but the Shang family's reputation had already soured. This was because other disciples who had been oppressed by the Shang family were also exerting their influence, spreading word of their high-handed behavior. In the evening, Guan sensed the breath of battle emanating from the main city of Sect, but it quickly faded. The one who had made a move was the Nine-Finger Divine Lord. LV Batian personally went to invite the Nine-Finger Divine Lord, who himself held the position of an elder and thus was not afraid of the Shang family. The Nine-Finger Divine Lord had intervened, moved by what LV Batian had said, for LV Batian hinted that Sword Venerable Fu Dao was secretly observing this farce. Guan did not mind the Venerable Pavilion using his influence as leverage. After all, it was the truth. Moreover, without giving them some confidence to forcefully confront the Shang family, it would have been difficult. What Guan wanted was their stance. That night was destined to be restless. When the sunlight of the following day streaked across the entire Supreme Sect, many legends had already spread among the populace. 2 days later, the Supreme Sect posted a declaration, revealing the cause and consequences of Wu Ju's case, clearing his name. It also informed the disciples that the Shang family too was unaware of the truth, deeming it all a misunderstanding. Although many disciples were dissatisfied, wanting to directly topple the Shang family, the Supreme Sect would not abandon a noble family over this affair, especially since the deceased was a genius of the Shang family. Wu Ju came to find Guan as soon as he was released, expressing his gratitude. Me? I had nothing to do with it. I spoke up for you and ended up getting lectured by the sect leader and the vice-sect leader, said Guan, shaking his head while he poured Wu Ju some tea. Wu Ju showed a smile and said, They're only scolding you because they're worried you might get into trouble. They're probably just trying to stabilize you first while they prepare the evidence. He felt that the frenzy among the disciples was stirred up by the likes of LV Batian and others, who dared not openly claim it was the intention of Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Faced with numerous speculations, they neither denied nor acknowledged. Guan huffed. Who knows what they're thinking? But as long as you're cleared of the charges, I'm happy. We must drink joyously all day and night today. You can't run away. Wu Ju laughed. With your cultivation level and mine, you think you can outdrink me? After this ordeal, he had gained clarity about many people and events. He did not harbor resentment but swore to become stronger and to repay Guan. A noble family, huh? If that was the case, then I too must become a noble family. Holding his bowl of wine, Wu Ju thought to himself as he looked at Gu An's smiling face. He also wanted to become Gu An's support, as a way to repay him. Guan didn't know what he was thinking, but regardless, it didn't matter to him. The issue with the Shang family was, in his eyes, no issue at all. Helping Wu Ju had many methods. Choosing this way simply added a bit of fun and anticipation to life. Guan turned his gaze towards the window. A gale had begun to blow outside, as if the world was on the brink of great upheaval. Compared to the grand trend of the world, the Supreme Sect's minor incidents were insignificant. The Immortal Dynasty was poised to make new moves. Lately, Guan had sensed the return of many existences above the Immortal Dao fifth-layer heaven to the great heavenly spirit land, all of them spirits from the Immortal Dynasty. Although the Holy Court had not welcomed a large influx of powerful individuals, they were clearly strengthening their positions in every domain. It seemed that the Magic Battle Conference had not brought long-term peace but had given the Immortal Dynasty greater hope. Beneath a night sky sprinkled with dazzling stars, atop a colossal palace with no ceiling, the Xianxia Emperor was meditating below a golden light sphere, eyes closed, hands continually casting spells. A figure appeared above the Grand Hall. The Ancient Immortal Emperor. The Ancient Immortal Emperor, frowning slightly, asked, "Do you truly intend to break through by force? With your talent, you would surely surpass me. Why can't you be a bit more patient?" Without opening his eyes, the Xianxia Emperor replied, "It's not that this emperor lacks patience, but Shengtian isn't giving this emperor a chance. If we let him succeed in his tribulation crossing, the Immortal Dynasty will no longer exist. His talent, as you know, is clear. The realm you could not traverse, he will surely reach. It's just a matter of when." The Ancient Immortal Emperor said, "The reincarnation tribulation is not that simple. Do you want to gamble the fate of the Immortal Dynasty on his failure? Or bet that it will take him 1,000,000, 10,000,000 years?" The Ancient Immortal Emperor fell silent at Xianxia Emperor's retort. Soon after, the Xianxia Emperor opened his eyes and looked toward the distant cosmos, saying, "Moreover, the Yuanshu ancestor did not open the paths of reincarnation without merit. What comes next will be the most potent period in the history of the Immortal Dynasty. All those supreme beings will return to fight alongside this emperor." Excitement appeared on his face, unable to wait for a battle with the Holy Court. The Ancient Immortal Emperor watched him and said, "Then how do you plan to break through? You don't think the Holy Court would be so arrogant as to allow you to break through, do you? If the Saint Ancestor does not make a move, I too must refrain, or else the situation will spin even further out of control." The Xianxia Emperor shook his head and said, "You need not worry, for this emperor has his own plans. I would even hope for them to try to stop my tribulation crossing. It would give me a justified cause to gain the upper hand." Chapter 389. Do you know what my cultivation level is? As autumn gave way to winter, the snow gradually blanketed the vast Taizong continent. Guan, wearing a mask, sat on the eaves, gazing up at the sky while Sage Xianmiao, in the courtyard below, engaged in alchemy and curiously watched Guan. The mountain god seemed engrossed in something, having been watching for quite some time. Sage Xianmiao silently thought, yearning for the perspective of the mountain god. The scenery before the mountain god's eyes surely transcended imagination. Could something be happening beyond the heavens? Sage Xianmiao guessed right. Indeed, something was happening outside the heaven, and it was an event of great importance to the world. Guan saw a host of immortal spirits arranging a grand formation in the cosmos. The scale was so immense that even the silhouettes of two divine thought true immortals could be discerned, sitting cross-legged above the formation, their auras completely unhidden. Someone was about to break through. With such an array, it seemed likely that a divine thought true immortal was attempting to advance to a free immortal. Guan could not calculate precisely who it was. The Immortal Dynasty was protected by chi fortune that obscured cause and effect. Of course, given time he could figure it out, yet to know or not held little significance because divine thought true immortals were scarce, and as for free immortals currently, there was only one in each domain. There were only 2 acknowledged free immortals in the entire visible great heavenly spirit land. Guan stood up, looking down at Sage Xianmiao, and said, "Great changes are coming to the world. Cultivate diligently and do not be lazy." Having said that, he vanished into thin air from the eaves. The world is about to change? Sage Xianmiao frowned. What kind of calamity would it take for the mountain god to speak of a great change? Elsewhere. In one step, Guan arrived inside the hidden spirit palace, his gaze directed outside the barrier, where the deep-sea dragon carp lingered nearby. After previously bumping into the barrier and confirming the location of the hidden spirit palace, it did not seem in a hurry. Instead, it idly circled the barrier's vicinity, making not a single sound. Guan stepped onto the open space in front of the hidden spirit palace gate, raising his right foot, and immediately after, the deep-sea dragon carp appeared right under his foot. The deep-sea dragon carp was stunned, its fish-eyed gaze widening. This time, it did not struggle but instead watched Guan calmly and steadily. "Do you have a death wish? Speak, steamed or grilled?" Guan asked expressionlessly, looking down at it. The fish eyes of the deep-sea dragon carp turned teary once again. None of the hardships and dangers it had encountered on its journey had humiliated it as much as being before Guan, where it had cried twice. Guan's heart remained unsoftened. After a moment's thought, the primordial divine eye appeared on his forehead, shooting out a beam of golden light into the body of the deep-sea dragon carp. The deep-sea dragon carp shivered as its body stiffened. After a few breaths, as if sensing something, it cautiously asked, "Are you an immortal?" It spoke with a human voice, sounding like a young boy, full of childishness. Guan did not move his foot, asking, "Whether I am or not, what does it have to do with you?" "Immortal. Will you take me in? I will submit to you as my master, just teach me divine skills, and I will obey you forever." The deep-sea dragon carp pleaded with tears, its tone brimming with misery that would tug at one's heartstrings. "Why should I take you in? Please, I beg you. How did you hear of immortals' legends at the bottom of the sea? Since I was little, I've had many memories that are not my own, likely passed down by my ancestors. I have seen the descent of immortals, and they look just like you. I am human, and the human race exists in this world." "No, you are different from the human race. You give me the same feeling as those immortals." Hearing this, Guan narrowed his eyes, directly employing the great imprisoned soul immortal technique to search through its memories. The eyes of the deep-sea dragon carp lost their luster, appearing as if dead, and it even began to blow bubbles from its mouth. After a long while, Guan withdrew his divine thought, his expression peculiar. There actually were immortals. In the memories of the deep-sea dragon carp, that was a very ancient time, and Guan could not determine how long ago it was through its memories because its bloodline memories were intermittent. The immortals in its memory were undoubtedly beings beyond the 9 heavens of immortal path. There were 5 in total, descending from the heavens, casting mysterious crystal stones into the Xianxia. That was the only fragment, yet the vision was clear. It demonstrated that the ancestor of the deep-sea dragon carp cherished this memory deep in their bones, unwilling to forget. Guan recalculated, verifying that the deep-sea dragon carp indeed had no other significant karma, before he felt at ease. He gently kicked the deep-sea dragon carp, jolting it awake. Without Guan's suppression, the deep-sea dragon carp suddenly soared upward, floating midair. The deep-sea dragon carp looked at Guan timidly, very nervous. "I can take you in, but are you sure you are willing to give up your freedom for eternity?" Guan asked. The deep-sea dragon carp, overwhelmed with joy, eagerly nodded and said, "I am willing. As long as I can cultivate with you, as long as I can become an immortal, I am willing." "Become an immortal? You'll have to prove your worth first." Guan cast a disparaging glance at the deep-sea dragon carp, then began to introduce it to the situation at Hidden Spirit Palace. The deep-sea dragon carp listened intently, fearful of disappointing Guan. After finishing his instructions, Guan told it to stay put for the time being and that he would teach it cultivation technique later. Then he went back to the supreme sect. The deep-sea dragon carp turned its head to look at Hidden Spirit Palace, its fish eyes shining brightly, filled with exuberant excitement. After decades of hardship, the sweet payoff had finally arrived. 13 years later. In the dead of night, Guan stood atop a peak at the edge of Mystic Valley, toying with the fate-determining pen in his hand while gazing at the night sky. The lord of the immortal dynasty, Xianxia Emperor, was about to undergo tribulation. The cosmos had gathered tens of thousands of mighty immortal spirits. Even the weakest among them was of the wandering immortal realm, and that was not the entirety of the immortal dynasty's power. Merely witnessing it was enough to make anyone marvel at the dynasty's strength. Above the outer layers of light, cultivators of the great heavenly spirit land from various great sects stood, discussing the unparalleled might of the immortal dynasty. They knew the immortal dynasty was formidable, but only today did they truly understand the extent of its strength. Most pivotal was that the holy court showed no reaction, as if indifferent to the tribulation of the immortal dynasty lord. What kind of terrifying heavenly tribulation is this? Such a dreadful aura, the number of heaven and earth flying immortals of the immortal dynasty seems to surpass the combined forces here. What do you think allows the Immortal Dynasty to stand against the Holy Court? The Immortal Dynasty is quite ambitious. Why does it seem like the Holy Court is wary of them? The disciples from the various sects, including those from Mortal World Peak, discussed such matters, and Guan listened in. The Holy Court was not wary of the Immortal Dynasty. They were clearly waiting for the right moment. Guan could sense that within one of the Holy Court cities, a vast number of divine immortals of wondrous dharma and carefree primordial immortals were gathering, evidently preparing for something. He had predicted a great battle where some of the cultivators from the layers above would fail to escape in time and be obliterated on the spot. This calamity would also impact the great heavenly spirit land, causing earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and other disasters across various domains. For many years to come, Taitsong continent would suffer its influence, and countless living beings would face challenging times. Guan had no intention of intervening. Such tribulation would not affect his Medicine Valley. As for the common folk, they would attribute these hard times to natural disasters, unaware of the high-level conflict. While the immortal cultivation world could understand what was happening, they too would be swept up in the turmoil of conflict. If the Holy Court's control was shaken, the world order would encounter an upheaval not seen in a million years. Xianxia Emperor. Interesting indeed, quite a remarkable figure. Guan mused to himself, envisioning Xianxia Emperor's imposing dominance in the years to come, casting a shadow of dark times over the Holy Court until the emergence of Xianxia. However, he could not predict where Xianxia would be. There were many like Xiaoyu in this world, burdened with the karma of reincarnation, making it difficult to deduce past lives through such karma, thus challenging to discern which one might be the Saint Heaven reincarnation. Perhaps Xianxia wasn't even in the great heavenly spirit land. Just as Guan was contemplating the future, a set of footsteps approached from behind. The newcomer was Jianghu. He cautiously approached Guan, and seeing that his master's eyes were not closed, he mustered the courage to ask, "Master, you've been here for such a long time, is there anything you need? Let me prepare it for you." Guan, without looking at him, answered softly, "Then prepare some wine and dishes." Jianghu, elated upon hearing this, quickly bowed and turned to make the arrangements. Guan wasn't too repelled by Jianghu's eagerness. After all, the boy had performed well over the years, truly focusing on his practice. The lad had already reached the core formation realm, only one realm below him, the Valley Master. With his talent, becoming the disciple of a great cultivator in the unification realm would not be difficult. Before long, Jianghu returned with wine and dishes, along with a small table. Guan accepted the wine Jianghu poured and in a seemingly indifferent tone, asked, "Jianghu, do you know what my cultivation level is?" Jianghu paused for a moment, deliberating, then answered, "The senior brothers mentioned that you had reached the nascent soul realm many years ago." "Actually, I am a loose immortal," Guan suddenly declared, leaving Jianghu with widened eyes filled with disbelief. Under Jianghu's stunned gaze, Guan raised his hand and the clouds above swiftly churned, forming a majestic dragon coiling through the sky. After a few breaths, Guan withdrew his hand, and the spectacle in the night sky vanished, returning to its original state. Jianghu was dumbfounded, doubting what he had just seen. When Guan lifted his hand again, Jianghu felt the world spin. Upon opening his eyes once more, he trembled with fright. Guan had become gigantic like a mountain, and he realized he was standing in the palm of Guan's hand. At that moment, Jianghu suddenly understood how Sun Wukong felt in the palm of the Buddha. Guan looked down at him expressionlessly and asked, "Do you now regret staying in Mystic Valley?" "No one knows of my cultivation level. Those who did are no longer alive." Jianghu immediately knelt down, head bowed, not daring to look directly at Guan. Clenching his teeth, he declared, "No regrets. To be your disciple is the fortune of 3 lifetimes." His mind was in turmoil, and he had never anticipated Guan to be so formidable. All he could do was to desperately try to please Guan. And he was extremely fearful. After all, Guan had previously taken a dislike to him. Would he simply kill him now? He suddenly regretted coming up to the mountain to ingratiate himself with his master. But wait. If his master wanted to kill him, why go through such an elaborate display? As Jianghu pondered this, his uneasy heart slowly calmed down. An approving glint passed through the eyes of Guan observing him. Even though the lad had made mistakes, he was not unforgivable. Lu Jujia's time was drawing near, and it might well be time to cultivate him. The reason for Gu An's change of heart toward Jianghu was the latter's unwavering dedication over decades to stay in Mystic Valley. He knew what Jianghu feared, but that was not important. What mattered was Jianghu's ability to remain seated in meditation, unlike Yang Jian, who sought to venture out upon gaining strength. Chapter 390. Displaying divine skills at dawn, Guan emerged from the forest, followed by Jianghu, whose expression was somewhat bewildered. Lu Jiujia, who was organizing the disciples for training, turned his head and noticed Jianghu following Guan, which sparked surprise within him. This young man actually dares to seek out his senior brother? In his heart, Lu Jiujia lamented, seeing that Jianghu clearly looked defeated. Guan continued on, joining the ranks of the disciples in preparation for training. Lu Jiujia did not ask Jianghu for details but urged him to join the queue quickly as the training was about to start. An hour later, Guan left Mystic Valley, and only then did Lu Jiujia dare to pull Jianghu back to the house to ask about what had happened the night before. Under the control of Gu An's divine thought, the disciples in the valley were unable to perceive the disturbances of the previous night and even failed to sense the approach of Gu An and Jianghu's energies. Facing Lu Jiujia's inquiry, Jianghu shook his head and said, "Senior brother, don't ask. Rest assured, I am fine. I will devote myself to building up Mystic Valley and won't let you or master down." After hearing this, Lu Jiujia felt uneasy. Why did it seem that this young man had grown closer to his senior brother? Even closer than him. Lu Jiujia thought it over and figured, since he didn't have many years left to live, wasn't the situation what he had hoped for? He respected Guan and treated Jianghu like a son, naturally hoping for a closer relationship between the two. "Perform well, your master will take note," Lu Jiujia said solemnly as he patted Jianghu on the shoulder. Jianghu nodded, his eyes blazing with a fire named combativeness. After the summer had passed, the Xianxia Emperor officially began his tribulation crossing. Guan stayed in the attic of the Third Medicine Valley, beginning to watch the divine thought true immortal's tribulation crossing. He wanted to see if the heavenly tribulation of the Xianxia Emperor could match his own. As soon as the heavenly tribulation began, he was disappointed. It seemed not very strong. As a divine thought true immortal realm being, he could have easily crossed it. While he was disappointed, the heaven and earth flying immortals in the exterior layers of sky shuddered with fear. Even from a great distance, they could feel the terror of the heavenly tribulation. What kind of heavenly tribulation is this? So far away and yet the pressure is still so terrifying? Which level of the immortal path's heavenly tribulation could this be? All I know is that from the 5th to the 6th level, the heavenly tribulation is nowhere near as frightening, and this is just the beginning. Could this tribulation affect the great heavenly spirit land? The immortal dynasty is truly formidable. The pressure we feel is just the residual effect. Look at their formations, how profound. The heaven and earth flying immortals discussed among themselves. Then, the carefree primordial immortal and the divine immortal of wondrous Dharma began to arrive. As time passed, the heavenly tribulation of the Xianxia Emperor grew increasingly terrifying. From the beginning of the heavenly tribulation, Guan could foresee the result. Even at its strongest, the tribulation could not shake his physique from when he was in the divine thought true immortal realm. If he were to undergo the Xianxia Emperor's heavenly tribulation, he would surely succeed on his first try. This heavenly tribulation would last a total of 7 days. The next day, the sky emitted a red glow, akin to a burning cloud. The cultivators of the supreme sect merely thought it beautiful, without giving it much thought. The same was true for 90% of the beings under the sky. On the 3rd day, the temperature of heaven and earth suddenly rose, and the spiritual energy became violent, forcing many cultivators who were in seclusion to emerge, with some even being invaded by inner demons. On the 4th day, earthquakes and tsunamis began to occur all around the world, which the supreme sect couldn't ignore. On the 5th day, the Holy Court took action. Guan saw a multitude of Holy Court powerhouses shot towards the cosmos like a rain of arrows. Their mana converged together, forming a formidable force that struck the great immortal dynasty's formation with an unstoppable momentum. The tremendous aftermath shattered many stars and meteorites in the cosmos, and then surged towards the great heavenly spirit land. The scenario Guan had deduced occurred. Some heaven and earth flying immortals turned to ash on the spot, and the entire great heavenly spirit land was shaken. The great immortal dynasty's formation was broken in an instant. However, dazzling flames burst forth from Xianxia Emperor's body, brighter and more massive than even the 7 outer days, radiating endless scorching heat. Xianxia Emperor raised his hand and astonishingly repelled tens of thousands of holy court powerhouses with a single move, including 5 divine thought true immortals. Not only that, Guan saw divine spirits with powerful auras flying out from the reincarnation vortex, all of whom were divine thought true immortals and Tao void mysterious immortals. The origins of these divine spirits were extremely bizarre, untraceable, almost as if they weren't living spirits but came from the 9 netherworld. They did not go to aid Xianxia Emperor but instead headed toward the Holy Dynasty. A world-shaking war thus erupted. In the ensuing time, Guan saw divine thought true immortals battling in the cosmos, Tao void mysterious immortals fighting within the Tao realm, and divine immortals of wondrous dharma and carefree primordial immortals dueling in states unobservable by ordinary beings. The holy gods joined the fight. All the holy gods of the holy court were divine thought true immortals. Each of their arrivals resembled immortals descending to the mortal world, majestic and awe-inspiring. Guan was indeed riveted by what he saw, but of course, he didn't forget his own identity, and he would also pretend to be worried when around others. On the 7th day, Xianxia Emperor had advanced to the free immortal realm, in full splendor. A violent storm approached. Under the pavilion, Xiaoyu looked up at the rolling thunderclouds, her brow tightly furrowed. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor suddenly appeared beside her, sighing, "This is the 6 realms' destiny ultimate void tribulation. This Xianxia Emperor is truly a rare genius in history, not inferior to Xianxia. Having 2 prodigies from the same era in a single great heaven and earth is terrifying. It's fortunate that they are adversaries." Upstairs, Guan heard this and his expression turned odd. The 6 realms' destiny ultimate void tribulation? When he had broken through to the Tao void mysterious immortal realm previously, his heavenly tribulation was called the 6 realms' destiny ultimate void tribulation, 3 realms more than what Xianxia Emperor is facing now. Did this represent a higher level of difficulty? Xiaoyu spoke. Indeed, if there were stronger beings in the great heavenly spirit land to guide them to unite, then this land could soar. Sadly, there are no such supreme beings here, destined to have only one prodigy survive. From what we see now, I believe Xianxia will have the last laugh. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor showed a smile, saying, "I, on the other hand, think Xianxia Emperor has more hope. The Holy Court entered the reincarnation tribulation later than your Majesty, and by the time Xianxia Emperor unifies the great heavenly spirit land, he might not be able to escape from his tribulation." After hearing this, Xiaoyu did not continue the conversation, her gaze firmly fixed on the sky. With a loud bang, a bolt of thunder appeared in the sky, resembling a giant dragon, spectacular to behold. "I, Xianxia Emperor, ruler of the immortal dynasty, proclaim my ascension to the 9 heavens of immortal path. How dare the holy court obstruct my tribulation crossing? From this day forth, the immortal dynasty declares total war on the holy court. In this war, only one shall remain." The voice of Xianxia Emperor resounded, his tone mixed with towering rage, and the most profound part was that only beings of the immortal path realm could hear it, inaudible to mortal spirits. Guan couldn't help but admire. This guy's acting was also very strong. Clearly, he had been deliberately waiting for the holy court to make a move. The holy court had no choice but to act, unable to watch the birth of a free immortal in the immortal dynasty. Their failure to act this time meant that the holy court was defeated by the immortal dynasty twice. Guan was full of anticipation for the future. As the great chaos commenced worldwide, continuously more suicidal attackers would invade the Taitsong continent, and he hadn't taken action in a long while, eager to display his divine skills. Chapter 391 Acceptance. After the Xianxia Emperor's furious proclamation resonated throughout the world, the epoch of great strife was officially unveiled. The successful breakthrough of the Xianxia Emperor led to his arrival at Holy Court, followed closely by other powerhouses of the Immortal Dynasty, who launched an unprecedented offensive against the Holy Court. However, with its robust Qi fortune, Holy Court managed to form a formation out of Qi fortune, blocking the offensive of the Free Immortals, which amazed Guan greatly. The way of Qi fortune was extremely versatile, no less than the way of cause and effect. To be precise, each of the 3,000 great Tao had its unique excellence, without an absolute strength or weakness, depending on the practitioner's achievement in their respective Tao. Ultimately, Holy Court withstood the Xianxia Emperor's assault, forcing him to retreat and return to the Immortal Dynasty to begin a seclusion. Although Holy Court survived, this battle came with severe losses, causing powers scattered across the world to start contracting. When sects throughout the world saw that Holy Court was not as invincible as imagined, many began to stir. Who didn't want to become the Holy Court? They were only submitting to the overwhelming might of Holy Court, not genuinely loyal from the heart. In the coming autumn, the entire great heavenly spirit land plunged into turbulence. In the late autumn, Guan, accompanied by an Xian, arrived at Mortal World Peak, quickly sensing the tense atmosphere enveloping the peak. The world was in chaos, with sects and dynasties watching. Choosing sides was necessary even without ambition. This was an unprecedented major upheaval in millions of years, making all forces quite cautious. After picking medicinal herbs on Dingtian Peak, Zhu Xinglan found Guan and informed him that the main peak had summoned him to attend a peak master meeting. Guan did not refuse and set off. All divine peak masters were present, and upon Guan's arrival, he received goodwill from many peak masters. After all, in their eyes, Guan was a being that even surpassed the carefree primordial immortal, so naturally, they wanted to forge an affiliation. Once all divine peak lords were assembled, Lord Yongnian began to elaborate on the situation of Mortal World Peak, with Holy Court hoping for their support to jointly attack the territories affiliated with the Immortal Dynasty. The Immortal Dynasty pressed their victory and rapidly expanded after suppressing Holy Court, showing a ferocious momentum of swallowing the celestial sphere. Now, Lord Yongnian wanted to discuss whether to support Holy Court, and if so, how? Guan did not participate in the discussion, merely listening quietly. The vast majority of peak masters believed they should not rashly support Holy Court, their perception shaken by the formidable power of the Immortal Dynasty, especially the Xianxia Emperor, who demonstrated the world's top prowess amidst the mysterious disappearance of Xianxia. How dare they support Holy Court when the world's foremost stands with the Immortal Dynasty? Guan did not look down on them. In fact, their conjecture was correct. Without Xianxia, it was impossible for the two free immortals of the Immortal Dynasty to be defeated. The Peak Master meeting lasted an ancient hour, and in the end, they decided to agree to Holy Court's request, but to discuss later when to take action. Guan returned to Dingtian Peak and guided an Xian in her cultivation. Only when evening fell did the two return to the Supreme Sect. Walking in the woods outside Mystic Valley, Guan observed Zhu Shi while moving forward. Master, who do you think will have the last laugh between the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court? An Xian excitedly asked, following closely by Guan's side. She wasn't afraid of a major conflict between the two great powers. She believed her master could protect her. It's hard to say, but one thing is certain, this calamity will last a long time. Guan responded casually, his tone calm, as if he placed no importance on the matter. An Xian then asked how powerful the Xianxia Emperor truly was, having heard many disciples of Mortal World Peak discussing him today, calling him the strongest of this era, the pinnacle of the immortal path. Very powerful, very powerful. Even with Hauer's talent, reaching that level would need hundreds of thousands of years. Guan's response astounded an Xian. Hundreds of thousands of years. After the shock, an Xian fell into boundless speculation. Would she still be alive after hundreds of thousands of years? Her gaze involuntarily turned towards her master. For her master to mention hundreds of thousands of years so casually, to him, would hundreds of thousands of years be like 10 years, or even 1 year to ordinary people? Anyway, she felt that no matter how strong the Xianxia Emperor was, he couldn't be as formidable as her master. Guan didn't know what she was thinking, but when he saw Zhu Shi pretending innocence after stealing medicinal herbs and sobbing in front of her master, he almost laughed. Given time, the Tai Chu swallowing Yuan body would surely become a supreme warrior of the world, perhaps even surpassing the Xianxia Emperor. Unfortunately, she was born too late and caught in such turbulent times, truly bad luck. Wait, could it be? Born to meet the calamity? Guan showed a look of interest and began to deduce Zhu Zai's fate. The Tai Chu swallowing Yuan Boda's fate was hard to predict, but as a Taoist hidden immortal, Guan could deduce some traces of cause and effect. As the years gently passed, with the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court entering full-scale war, the whole world burned in warfare, with far more shooting stars visible at night than ever before. Continuously, overseas cultivators fled to the Taitsong continent to seek refuge, also bringing many grievances and conflicts which kept spreading. 20 years swiftly passed. At the end of summer, Guan stood shoulder to shoulder with Lu Jiujia on a cliff, gazing into the distance. Lu Jiujia had a full head of white hair, and the twilight air around him grew heavier with each passing year. The effects of the youth-preserving pill had already faded. These years the atmosphere within the Supreme Sect has truly become more tense, and even the sky above doesn't look as blue as before, always appearing gloomy, Lu Jiujia remarked with a sigh. Clouds scattered across the sky, not covering the entire sky, nor showing signs of wind or rain. Guan replied, "Yes, it really is a season full of incidents. What do you think, are we lucky or unlucky in this life? We always encounter various calamities, although we have passed through them safely under the protection of the Supreme Sect." Lu Jiujia chuckled. "Naturally, we are lucky. Those seniors also thought their lives were filled with hardships. Everyone feels they weren't born in the best of times." "I'm surprised you understand it so well," Guan said to Lu Jiujia, relieved. Watching as Lu Jiujia's days were numbered, he couldn't help but think of Xiaochuan. Why hasn't Xiaochuan reincarnated yet? Could it be that he reincarnated in another world? Guan thought of the immortal dynasty summoning back so many powerful immortal spirits from the reincarnation vortex, and felt that the reincarnation vortex was not so simple. That's thanks to the good teachings of my senior brother. Besides, I won't live too many more years, and the calamities in my life are all made by myself, no one else to blame. Anyway, I am quite satisfied with this life, Lu Jiujia said, shaking his head with a wry smile. Guan snorted, "How come you all have no regrets when it's time to die? Are you afraid of burdening me?" He had already seen many pass away, each one departing with a smile, leaving him not too sentimental, only occasionally feeling nostalgic. "Ha ha ha, senior brother, don't think too much. Is it possible that under your care we really had a good life? We have all ventured out and experienced the dangers of the world, which is why we cherish our current lives and are content with the lives we have led. You really don't need to think too much. No one should be responsible for another's life." Lu Jiujia laughed heartily, then spoke earnestly. He could tell that senior brother cared about the cultivation of those around him. He knew senior brother did not seek wealth or honor for his close ones, but rather hoped that they would live long. Guan smiled. "Where am I overthinking? Actually, I am also selfish. I just don't want to end up lonely." Lu Jiujia laughed. "Everyone must die eventually, it's inevitable." "True, let's talk about the Great Sun Divine Sect instead. Who knows when they might attack?" "Really? The Broken Sea Domain is under the protection of the Holy Court. Could the Great Sun Divine Sect really be stronger than the Great Cold Demon Sect of yore?" Lu Jiujia frowned, speaking of the Great Sun Divine Sect, which had been a hot topic recently. Even the realm of heaven and earth flying immortal had strongly entered into the consciousness of Supreme Sect's disciples. Various rumors all pointed to one thing: the Broken Sea Domain was about to face an unprecedented threat, and the Taitsong dynasty situated there would find it hard to escape unscathed. Guan smiled. "How about we make a bet? Guess whether the Great Sun Divine Sect can defeat Sword Venerable Fu Dao?" Upon hearing this, Lu Jiujia instantly raised his eyebrows. "I bet they are no match for Sword Venerable Fu Dao." Guan's smile stiffened. "No, let's draw lots, decide the order of choice." "I want." "You itching for a spanking? Don't think just because you're old, senior brother won't dare to thrash you." "Oh come on, the disciples are watching. What kind of example would that set? The prestige of the first disciple must be maintained. Don't make it difficult for the next generation's first disciple." The two began to bicker, laughter echoing endlessly. Mountains ranged in succession, and in one forested mountain, numerous pavilions nestled. A young man knelt in the courtyard, his face stubborn, his gaze fixed on the main gate. "No matter how long you kneel, I will not hand over your ancestors' brocade bag to you," a woman's voice came from the gate. "Why not?" The young man gritted his teeth. "My father and my grandfather's deep-seated vendetta. Are you really going to ignore it? They are also your descendants. Exactly for that reason, I cannot let you continue to risk your life. What's wrong with being a mortal? Once you step into the world of immortal cultivation, no one ends well. Being a mortal when facing power, when encountering cultivators, we are just meat on the chopping block, at the mercy of others." The young man's voice nearly broke at the end. The mysterious woman inside the gate fell silent. After a long while, the mysterious woman spoke softly. "The bloodline of the Yin family is deeply cursed. None of your ancestors had a good ending, Not even my son, who did not live past 30. The deeper you cultivate, the worse the outcome, yet still you persist? Perhaps the brocade bag left by our ancestor is meant to resolve this issue. It's useless. I don't believe it. Just give it to me, let me decide for myself. Someone has to try. The young man said sternly, his body trembling because he had been kneeling for too long. Emotions stirred. His chi blood was somewhat deficient. Clang! The gate suddenly opened. A brocade bag flew out, landing in front of the young man. Overjoyed, the young man immediately picked up the brocade bag, tore it open, and took out a piece of paper, tremblingly examining it. The paper bore 2 large characters. Resign. The young man felt as if struck by lightning, his eyes widened, and he was dumbstruck. Why? The young man murmured to himself. His hands involuntarily clenched into fists, and the paper was crumpled with them. His fingernails dug into his own flesh, blood seeping out, staining the paper in his hands. Chapter 392 The Sense of Intimacy of an Yuan. Why resign oneself to fate? Why? The youth trembled all over, his eyes filled with despair. Dark clouds blanketed the sky, as if destiny obscured the sunshine of his life, leaving no sight of hope. The mysterious woman in the building did not answer, nor did she offer any comfort. She had once felt the same despair when she came across those 2 characters. She did not resent that man either. After all, he warned her before he left. Yet, she couldn't withstand her family's persuasion and got caught up in the disputes, leading to her descendants having to hide in the mountains, humbly lamenting the unfairness of fate. Just then, the youth suddenly felt a sharp pain in his palm, which frightened him into reflexively letting go, throwing the crumpled paper away. He instinctively looked at his palm and saw many blood-red lines appear, quite ghastly. He seemed to realize something, raised his head, and fixed his gaze on the blood-stained paperball before scrambling over to it. He picked up the paper, unfolded it, and to his surprise, found that the words "resigned to fate" had disappeared, replaced by 3 large characters. Supreme Sect. Supreme Sect. What does this mean? The youth murmured, frowning. He had certainly heard of the Supreme Sect, the legendary #1 sect above all dynasties. With his talent, how difficult it would be to enter the Supreme Sect. Suddenly, a figure appeared beside him. A woman wearing a black Taoist robe with white hair, yet a face that was young and comely. She was none other than the Princess of Tianwei, Xianxia, who had once been engaged to Hao. She snatched the paper from the youth's hand and scrutinized the characters. Her brows furrowed tightly, her eyes filled with complex emotions. Weren't you the one who told me not to try to ingratiate myself with that elder? Why then leave a secret message for your descendants to go to the Supreme Sect? Did you know this day would come, or were you worried about the safety of your progeny? Xianxia mumbled to herself, her tone complex, a mix of surprise, reluctance, anger, and resentment. The youth stood up, his legs weak. It took him a while to steady his stance. Grandmother, what does the ancestor mean? That I should go to the Supreme Sect? He asked nervously, his eyes full of anticipation. Xianxia took a deep breath and said, Yes, go to the Supreme Sect. The youth, overjoyed, turned to leave immediately. Wait. Do you even know where the Supreme Sect is located? How far away it is? Xianxia suddenly called out to him. The youth turned his head and said, The Supreme Sect is so famous, I should be able to find out by asking around. With your pace, it will take 10 years to get there, by which time you might already be dead. Xianxia stared at him, saying emotionlessly. Upon hearing this, the youth's face turned pale. Xianxia turned her back and walked towards the attic, leaving behind a sentence. Just wait, it'll take you to the Supreme Sect. The youth, with a look of delight, quickly knelt to thank Xianxia. Meanwhile, Hao was cultivating in the immortal dynasty, unaware of what his descendants were going through. He meditated on a cliff, facing a vast and magnificent waterfall, its thunderous roar deafening. Below was a lake as vast as the ocean, covered with a mist that made the place seem like a paradise on earth. A figure appeared behind Hao, a woman in a white dress, gazing at him with eyes full of admiration. Hao, the immortal dynasty has issued a chi fortune bounty. Why don't you take part? With the support of the dynasty's chi fortune, Your cultivation level will grow faster, much better than painstakingly meditating, said the woman in the white dress, her voice gentle and tender. And Hao, with his back to her, did not open his eyes, replying, to seek the path of immortality solely through chi fortune might not be right. I believe more in the mana that I cultivate myself. The woman in the white dress smiled and said, that's true. With your extraordinary talent, you can reach the pinnacle of the immortal path on your own. It's just a matter of time. And Hao did not respond. The only sound was the clamor of the waterfall striking the lake's surface. The woman in the white dress continued to watch Hao, not finding it dull. After a long while. Please return. Fairy. Perhaps I misunderstood your intentions. In any case, I will never remarry in this lifetime. I once had a wife, but in pursuit of immortal cultivation, I've cut off our relationship, and I do not wish to become involved with another woman in more than just friendship. And Hao finally spoke, his tone calm but resolute. Upon hearing this, the woman's face subtly changed. She wanted to say something but couldn't as she looked at Hao's back. She watched his silhouette for a while, eventually turning to leave. Only after she had gone did Hao open his eyes, a look of melancholy in his gaze. So many years have passed, are you still well? And Hao murmured to himself, an image of a bright and playful girl appeared before him, her smile and glance, even after hundreds of years, unforgettable to him. A year later, near the Supreme Sect, in the forests. Xianxia and the young man were on their way, with the young man carrying a large bundle that bent his back. He looked at his grandmother walking ahead and couldn't help asking, Grandmother, why not teach me to cultivate instead? Otherwise, I truly might die of exhaustion. When the grandmother took out a flying artifact, he was stunned, never imagining she was so powerful. He had also questioned his grandmother why she hadn't stepped in to save his grandfather, his father, to which Xianxia replied that she was too far away to intervene in time. Regarding why she didn't seek revenge, it was for his sake too. The enemy was a powerful family with an immortal in their ranks, certainly not someone she could contend with. Learning the reasons, the youth's desire to cultivate and become an immortal grew stronger. He must become powerful. We're almost there. What need is there to cultivate now? Xianxia's voice came from ahead. Upon hearing this, the youth was instantly overjoyed and quickly hastened his pace. He began to inquire about his ancestors' relationship with the Supreme Sect. This time, Xianxia did not hide the truth. Your ancestor, named Hao, was the foremost talent in the world, and now he is venturing in an even more distant realm. He is the pride of the Supreme Sect. As Xianxia spoke, a wistful expression crossed her face. She remembered Hao's spirited visage. She harbored no resentment for Hao's decision. After all, it was her own heart that had stirred first, not to mention that before leaving, Hao had left behind several treasures. It was for this reason that the Si family, following their downfall, could survive with her descendants. When the youth heard the name Hao, it seemed somewhat familiar. But as he listened to his grandmother praising him, the youth did not feel excited. Instead, his expression grew even more somber. The stronger Hao was, the more the youth despised him. What of it if he was the world's most talented? In his eyes, he was just a negligent forebear, probably not all that impressive. The two continued their conversation as they moved forward, with most of the speaking done by Xianxia, while the youth said very little. As they walked, figures appeared in front of them. The first to enter their sight was a man riding a demon bull, followed by a woman. Xianxia had long since sensed their presence, with one of them being a nascent soul realm cultivator, undoubtedly a disciple of the Supreme Sect. Therefore, she wanted to approach these two to lead them into the Supreme Sect. She quickened her pace, with the youth following closely behind, his gaze fixed on the blood prison great saint. What a magnificent bull! Guan patted the head of the blood prison great saint, signaling it to stop. An Exine turned her head to look and quickly set her sights on the youth, her brows furrowing soon after. An Yuan, Energy Cultivation Realm, Level 117/25/5000. Guan looked at the youth's lifespan without a change in expression, but internally he felt puzzled. Why was his lifespan so short? He came here with an Exine because he had calculated the arrival of Xianxia and the other person. He also predicted the plight of Hao's descendants, but upon truly encountering an Yuan, he was still surprised. His lifespan was unreasonably short, especially considering that there was no sign of illness. Xianxia approached an Exine and with a salute of her hand, said, My name is Xianxia, from the former land of Tianwei. May I ask if you two are disciples of the Supreme Sect?
You're called Xianxia?
And Xin's eyes widened in shock as she asked. Xianxia inquired with suspicion. Have you heard of my name, miss? Of course I've heard. My senior brother mentioned you to me. Your brother is? Xianxia too became excited, hearing Hao mention his sister. And Xian did not conceal her identity, and upon revealing it, the two women embraced each other as if reuniting after a long parting. And Yuan stared blankly at Xian, not expecting this woman with the grace of an immortal to be his ancestor's junior sister. So young she looked about his age. Who is this? Xianxia turned her attention to Guan, asking with curiosity. And Xian hastily introduced, This is my master, although not the same as the one shared with my senior brother. He is my second master. Xianxia suddenly understood. She, of course, knew who Hao's master was, the renowned sword venerable Fu Dao. This fact, she had not mentioned to Yuan. Guan smiled and asked, You aren't here looking for Hao, are you? He has already joined the immortal dynasty, and even a Mahayana cultivator would need decades, even 100 years to reach the immortal dynasty from the ends of the earth. The immortal dynasty. Xianxia immediately lapsed into a daze. She had naturally heard this name, as the Yuanshu ancestor who opened reincarnation came from the immortal dynasty. Has he already reached such a state? Xianxia suddenly felt fortunate. Fortune that she had not been overbearing in the past. Had she clung to him in the Taitsong continent, wouldn't Hao have achieved such greatness? Come back to the valley with us first. We can talk more after a few days' rest. Guan's words matched Xianxia's intentions. She swiftly bowed in thanks and gestured for Yuan to speak. And Yuan, just coming to his senses, quickly bowed in salute. The group headed towards Mystic Valley. And Xian and Xianxia walked arm in arm at the front, while Yuan cautiously followed behind the Blood Prison Great Saint. The Blood Prison Great Saint turned its head to glance at Yuan, a strange look in its eyes. And Yuan felt uneasy all over, watched by the demon. Could it be wanting to eat him? He indeed looks quite a bit like Hao. It's just that the talent is far inferior. I didn't expect the offspring of such a genius to be so disappointing, the Blood Prison Great Saint remarked. Upon hearing this, an irate Yuan glared, but he dared not retort. Guan slapped the Blood Prison Great Saint on the back and said crossly, Why speak so of the younger generation? Do you believe I could make you worse off than him? The Blood Prison Great Saint, shivering all over, did not dare to speak further. And Yuan curiously looked at Guan, feeling a newfound fondness for him. For some reason, from that first glimpse of Guan, he felt a great liking for him, sensing that his smile was so gentle, bringing him a feeling of kinship. Guan waved Yuan over, beckoning him to stand beside the Blood Prison Great Saint. Chapter 393. Shengtian. Terror descends. Do you want to know how I met your ancestor and Hao? Guan looked at Yuan with a smile and asked. And Yuan felt uncomfortable, knowing his ancestor was still alive and very powerful. He was full of hostility towards Hao, and did not want to listen to anything about Hao. However, he could not afford to defy Guan and had to nod in agreement. It was an internal strife within the Supreme Sect. Guan looked ahead, his tone full of emotion. His voice had a compelling power, letting Yuan vaguely see a certain scene. It was a grand hall where Guan met Hao. The one walking ahead, Xianxia, was also listening attentively, curious about Hao's experiences in the Supreme Sect. An hour later, the group arrived at Mystic Valley, and Guan asked Jianghu to help settle them. At present, Lu Jiujia had already begun to delegate authority to Jianghu increasingly. Among the disciples in the valley, Jianghu had the highest cultivation level and deepest seniority. The disciples all respected him. In the depths of the night. Inside the house, Xianxia sat opposite Xian, taking out a blood-stained piece of paper left by Hao. Looking at it made Xin's heart ache for Yuan. On the way back, she had already learned about the plight of Hao's descendants and was quite indignant. I don't know what this paper means. Can you help me understand? Xianxia asked nervously, also unclear about what she should do after arriving at the Supreme Sect. And Xian saw the words, Supreme Sect, and knew that Hao wanted his descendants to seek Guan's help in desperate times. She pondered and asked,
What is your request?
Hearing this, Xianxia felt hopeful and said, I don't expect much, I only hope to change the destiny of that boy in Yuan. An Xian thought for a moment and suggested, let's keep in Yuan in Medicine Valley then. I will take care of him, and you can also stay and join the Supreme Sect, but you must not meet him. She knew Gu An's character. Being able to keep in Yuan was already good enough. She couldn't keep the whole family in Medicine Valley, especially since the Supreme Sect was vast, and for someone of Xianxia's cultivation level, joining was not difficult. Upon hearing this, Xianxia immediately grabbed Nzin's hand in gratitude. She didn't doubt Nzin's words. An Xian was also a disciple of Sword Venerable Fudao and naturally could meet Sword Venerable Fudao. About my relationship with my master, do not speak to others about it, an Xian said earnestly.
He does not wish to be disturbed, and I am just a disciple of Medicine Valley and do not want to be involved in troubles.
After speaking, she suddenly realized why Guan liked to say these words. Not bad, quite a feeling. Xianxia immediately promised not to divulge it. For Xianxia, that night was one of relief, and for an Yuan, it was filled with hope. As the moon set and the sun rose, in the early morning, an Yuan was drawn by the commotion in Medicine Valley. He stepped outside the house and saw nearly 300 disciples practicing drills together. It was quite spectacular. Xianxia was also watching from the side. When the drills finished, she bid farewell to Guan, preparing to leave since she had more than just an Yuan as a descendant. If life gets tough, bring your offspring and return, Guan said gently. I still have some influence in the Supreme Sect and can help you sort things out. He would not deliberately aid those with whom he did not have a close karmic connection, but if someone came to him for help, he wouldn't refuse. Moreover, he foresaw that the family offended by the infamily would have further entanglements of gratitude and resentment, a long line of fate. Xianxia hesitated for a moment, then nodded in agreement and thanked Guan watching her departing figure. Guan thought about seeing her in the past as Sword Venerable Fudao. At that time she did not have this weathered air about her, lively and playful like Zhenqin, and seemed like a joyous nemesis with an Hao. Times and circumstances change. Guan mused, his gaze then shifting to an Yuan. He probably understood why an Yuan had a short lifespan. An Yuan's ancestors had all died due to misfortune, especially in recent generations, dying ever so prematurely. Everything was related to the heritage and Hao had received at the Holy Court. Heavenly Dao heritage. This made Guan think of the Heaven Sect, which had also received the Heavenly Dao's heritage and then had to abandon all emotions after gaining great power. Could it be that the descendants and close friends of the Heaven Sect had all died due to misfortune? Such a Heavenly Dao heritage was too malicious. Why was it so? Could it be that it intended to make the Heavenly Dao cultivators desireless and without emotional weaknesses? Guan did have a method to try, which was to sever the cause and effect between an Yuan and an Hao, making the two unrelated. Looking at extremes in lifespan, an Yuan was also talented, just not as much as an Hao. He wasn't in a hurry to change an Yuan's fate just yet, hoping to let the boy settle for 2 years first. His intention for revenge was too strong, highly resembling the early days of Su Han. Days passed by one after another. After joining the Mystic Valley, an Yuan received the cultivation techniques from Jianghu. Although he could not become strong quickly, he finally saw some hope. One night, an Yuan had a heart-to-heart talk with Jianghu. The two had similar fates, both carrying deep-seated hatreds. The difference was that an Yuan was also trapped in destiny, which made Jianghu feel very sympathetic and decided to give him a hand. Jianghu took an Yuan as his disciple and taught him all he knew. Guan did not stop them, hoping they could redeem each other. Until one afternoon at the end of autumn. I've decided. An Yuan suddenly stood up, his face firm as he looked towards the distant sky. Sitting by his side, Jianghu looked at him in surprise, not knowing why the boy was so agitated. The master and disciple were on a mountaintop, overlooking the magnificent landscape afar. An Yuan with great ambition shouted loudly, I want to surpass an Hao. From now on, I'm not called an Yuan. My name is Xianxia. Boom! Thunder rumbled in the distant clouds as if the heavens were responding to him. Jianghu looked at Xianxia, feeling a shiver in his spirit from an unprecedented aura radiating from him. He had never met an Hao, but had heard of his legend. That was a cultivator said to have the highest talent. This boy's ambition. A smile appeared on Xianxia's face.
He was about to speak when a loud voice echoed between heaven and earth. The strongest man in the Broken Sea domain, Holy Sword of the Holy Court, show yourself. If you do not appear, I will suppress all living beings in Broken Sea domain with one palm. The voice was immensely domineering and filled with oppression, startling Xianxia and Jianghu as they looked up, both opening their mouths in disbelief. Above, the dark clouds churned, and an immensely majestic figure appeared on the horizon, full body obscured, only a golden breastplate visible, which was larger than any mountain between heaven and earth. It was as if a demon god from beyond the world was peering at the mortal spirits within. The sense of oppression chilled Xianxia and Jianghu down to their spines. Not just them, the entire Taitsong continent, the entire Broken Sea domain, all living beings who saw that majestic figure felt fear. What kind of existence was this? Could it be an immortal? At the third Medicine Valley, Guan walked downstairs, and Xiaoyu also stepped outside, looking at the figure on the horizon, her brows furrowed. Where are you going? Xiaoyu called out to Guan, I'm going to see Mystic Valley, worried about the disciples. Guan replied over his shoulder, then quickly walked toward the transmission array platform. Chapter 394. How can he be so strong above the sea of clouds? A man clad in golden battle armor stood proudly. He had a strapping figure and exuded an aura of domination. Clutching a long spear, his golden armor radiated a brilliance that reached thousands of meters. Looking above his helmet, the stars scattered across, and the universe dazzled. He appeared as if he was amidst the universe itself. Looking downward, he could see the vast ocean with continents appearing as mere pebbles under his feet, so insignificant. His gaze locked onto the Taitsong continent, filled with a fighting spirit. He hailed from the Immortal Dynasty, known as Autumn Evening Immortal Lord. Upon closer inspection, his left hand was held aloft, and within the palm was a city with numerous cultivators above it, tinier than specks of dust.
Broken Sea Domain City. Qing Songzi, whose cultivation level had reached the 7th layer of the carefree primordial immortal realm, looked up at Autumn Evening Immortal Lord with eyes filled with fear. This domain master of the Broken Sea had never felt so weak. He who ruled over all beings in his domain now felt only panic, unable to maintain the demeanor of a domain master. What do? We can't escape at all.
What realm is this guy in that he can suppress us all with a single palm?
Autumn Evening Immortal Lord, I've heard of his legends. He surpassed the carefree primordial immortal centuries ago. In his youth, he was unrivaled among his peers. The Immortal Dynasty is too presumptuous. Aren't they afraid of Xianxia coming back? We should have eradicated the Immortal Dynasty long ago. The successive Xianxians were too benevolent. Cultivators in Broken Sea Domain City discussed anxiously as despair spread throughout the city. Autumn Evening Immortal Lord did not glance at the city in his palm. His focus remained steadfast on Taitsong continent, waiting for the Holy Court Holy Sword to make a move. If he could slay the Holy Sword, he would gain immense chi fortune. He had investigated. The Holy Court Holy Sword had not received the chi fortune of the Holy Court, making him an easier target without the protection of the chi fortune of the Holy Court. He patiently waited as he had set a deadline in his mind. If the Holy Court Holy Sword did not appear by the time, he would have no choice but to annihilate the Broken Sea domain. For him, a born immortal spirit, slaying numerous beings did not evoke any guilt, just as humans may feel disgust but rarely guilt when stepping on a horde of insects. All beings within the Broken Sea domain could look up and see his immense projection. This was a divine skill with immense oppressive force, aimed to crush the spirits of the masses and kill any intent of resistance. Facing his figure that seemingly dwarfed the heavens and the earth, most beings felt intense fear. Even if they thought of fleeing, they didn't know where to go. It seemed wherever they flew, they couldn't escape from beneath the feet of Autumn Evening Immortal Lord. This was a sensation of despair like facing the vast heavens. In the Supreme Sect, within Mystic Valley, Jianghu and Xianxia returned to the valley, and the disciples surrounded Guan, extremely tense. In such times, they could only rely on Guan, hoping he could comfort them. Don't worry, the Supreme Sect is full of experts. Moreover, Sword Venerable Fudao is here. If someone provokes Sword Venerable Fudao, how could he tolerate it? Guan spoke, alleviating some of the disciples' tension, but some still harbored concerns. Master, Is Sword Venerable Fu Dao really still here? Although there is indeed a vast sword intent on the heavenly repair platform, he hasn't made a move in many years. A disciple said worriedly, immediately causing other disciples to echo his sentiment, and panic spread once again. Guan continued to comfort them verbally while considering in his heart how to deal with this Dao void mysterious immortal. How dare this guy show such a form and openly challenge him in front of everyone? Then Guan must also defeat this man assertively in front of all beings. It's been too long since he last acted. It's about time to remind the disciples of his existence. This time he wouldn't use swordsmanship, opting for something more spectacular. After calming the disciples, Guan turned and walked toward the transmission array platform. When he teleported to the third medicine valley, as soon as his right foot touched the ground, he began to unleash his divine skills. Xiaoyu first turned her gaze towards him, but a moment later, she was captivated by the anomaly in the sky. Rolling dark clouds spun violently, and a massive wind surged between heaven and earth as an immense oppressive force descended. Countless beings instinctively looked up only to witness a moment they would never forget. The sea of clouds in the sky formed a cyclone that kept rising as if intending to sweep into outer heaven. As the remaining clouds ascended, more of Autumn Evening Immortal Lord's majestic figure was revealed. However, this time, the beings did not fear his figure because a yet larger presence appeared. That was the sky's zenith. A huge disk, swirling with gray mist, expanded while rotating, quickly overshadowing the top of Autumn Evening Immortal Lord's head. Autumn Evening Immortal Lord's true form looked up as his immense projection did likewise, his face showing fear. The ultimate primordial disk. This was a great divine power inherently possessed by the primordial ultimate body, supremely overbearing. Guan had never used this great divine power in reality before. As the ultimate primordial disk began to coalesce, the vast oppressive force engulfed Autumn Evening Immortal Lord, leaving him unable to escape. How is this possible? What is his cultivation level? Autumn Evening Immortal Lord thought with a pounding heart. He was a Dao Void Mysterious Immortal, and the Holy Court Holy Sword had never demonstrated the power of a Dao Void Mysterious Immortal in the reports from the Immortal Dynasty. The Holy Sword's strength was regarded as between the Divine Immortal of Wondrous Dharma and a Dao Void Mysterious Immortal. Even if it reached the level of a Dao Void Mysterious Immortal, it shouldn't surpass his own. He was a Dao Void Mysterious Immortal of the 7th layer. But right now, he finally realized how terrifying the cultivation level of the Holy Court Holy Sword was. Not even a divine thought true immortal could possess such exaggerated oppressive power. He could not escape, nor could he speak, and even his divine sense and primordial spirit could not leave his body. Fear and despair swiftly occupied his heart, and his eyes were full of terror. Under his gaze, the ultimate body of the primordial talisman successfully condensed, and the gray disk was covered in dense patterns, as if it hid a vast world, awe-inspiring to behold. The projection of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor was immensely large, towering over everything, making all else seem insignificant, yet under the ultimate body of the primordial talisman, he appeared less so. The ultimate body of the primordial talisman seemed to cover the entire great heavenly spirit land. In truth, it only covered the sky of the Broken Sea domain. Guan had used a small trick. In the eyes of the beings in the Broken Sea domain, the ultimate body of the primordial talisman indeed seemed as vast as the great heavenly spirit land, creating a terrifying visual impact. The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor appeared from thin air next to Xiaoyu, looking up in amazement. What kind of divine power is this? The Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor was filled with fear. He had heard of Sword Venerable Fu Dao's existence, but his divine sense had swept through the supreme sect without finding him. He thought Sword Venerable Fu Dao had been scared off. Now it seemed that their cultivation levels were too different, and he simply couldn't detect where Sword Venerable Fu Dao was, or who he was. Perhaps Sword Venerable Fu Dao had appeared before him and he had failed to see through him. The thought made him shiver with dread. Standing beside him, Xiaoyu did not respond. She too had never witnessed this divine power, and her heart was filled with shock. Just how powerful was Sword Venerable Fu Dao? She had already recalled memories from her past life, where in the 7-star spirit realm, Sword Venerable Fu Dao's demonstrated strength was far less than it was now. She had then looked forward to Sword Venerable Fu Dao's future, but now, it seemed she had underestimated him. Back then, she had unleashed the power of a primordial Taoist talisman, with her true self's consciousness returning. If her true self had misjudged, didn't that imply that Sword Venerable Fudao's Dao level was stronger than her true self's? Her feelings became complicated. If they felt this way, what about all living beings? What is that? My heavens, am I dreaming? Could it be that heaven is angry? It's Sword Venerable Fudao. It must be him. He's still in the Supreme Sect. Why isn't Sword Venerable Fudao displaying Sword Dao divine skills? Isn't this divine power stronger than the Sword Dao? Look at that guy, he's scared stiff. Ha ha ha, daring to challenge Sword Venerable Fudao is truly seeking death. The Supreme Sect was abuzz, everyone revitalized, and the beings of the Taitsong continent were also excited, shouting the name of Sword Venerable Fudao. For the countless beings of the Broken Sea domain, it was merely a shock. Is this the capability of the Holy Sword of the Holy Court? If heaven had power, would it not be like this? It's been many years since anyone dared to challenge me. This is the ultimate body of the primordial talisman. Feel the power of the Tao. A hoarse voice echoed through the world, laden with oppression. Hearing this voice, all beings were electrified. Yu Yingying looked towards Guan from afar, seeing his shocked expression, and she was filled with confusion. And Xian was also looking at Guan, and her heart was full of admiration. Compared to her master, her acting was still too poor. At the same time, she was overwhelmed. Was this truly her master's power? Little did she know, Guan hadn't even used his full strength. He had even suppressed his aura to the 9th layer of the divine thought true immortal realm, giving others a glimmer of hope to continue sending people to their doom. Yet even so, Xiaoyu felt he was beyond a divine thought true immortal. And perhaps even a usual free immortal could not match him. Boom! A deafening roar erupted, rendering the beings temporarily deaf, which didn't pain them but merely left them unable to hear. Countless creatures watched the vast ultimate body of the primordial talisman descend, as if witnessing a divine spectacle. Guan opened his mouth in disbelief, staring at the sky as the strong wind swirled his robes. With a thought, he allowed the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor to speak, nothing more. No, Elder. I was wrong. Give me a chance to atone. Once the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor realized he could speak, like grasping a lifeline in water, he yelled hoarsely, his voice echoing throughout the Broken Sea domain. Under Guan's suppression, beings outside the Broken Sea domain couldn't hear, but the already deaf beings of the Broken Sea domain distinctly heard the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor's hoarse scream. Guan was establishing his authority among the beings of the Broken Sea domain, yet he also wanted the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court to underestimate him. No matter how much the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor begged for mercy, the descent speed of the ultimate body of the primordial talisman suddenly decreased. Eventually, the ultimate body of the primordial talisman landed above the head of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor. Almost instantly, the projection of the Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor was annihilated, and his true self felt an incredibly terrifying suction force. The main city of the Broken Sea domain he held was yanked out, crashing into the ocean, leaving the cultivators there wide-eyed. They would never forget this scene in their lifetimes. How could he be so powerful? Qing Songzi muttered to himself, suddenly realizing why Sword Venerable Fudao had declined the offer of the Chi Fortune Fruit position, and why the Holy Minister had agreed. Chapter 395. Fame Shakes the World. The Apex Talent. The Supreme Primordial Great Disk hung high above, much like the highest and supreme Tao suspended above all living beings. The true form of immortal Lord Choshi was drawn into the Supreme Primordial Great Disk, so filled with despair and helplessness, devoid of any means of resistance. As he disappeared into the Supreme Primordial Great Disk, the rumbling of heaven and earth continued unabated, causing the entire Broken Sea domain to tremble as if the apocalypse had arrived. Moments later, a prompt appeared before Guan's eyes. You have successfully slain Immortal Lord Choshi, Tao Void Mysterious Immortal Realm Level 7, 340,876 years of lifespan. Not bad, it saves half a month's labor. Although Guan thought this, the look of shock remained on his face. That was his belief. The acting had to be thorough. The Supreme Primordial Great Disk did not vanish immediately but continued to hang in the sky for the adoration of all beings. Because the Supreme Primordial Great Disk was so immense, the patterns on it were so clear to all beings, those images seemed to record ancient myths, which left the beings in awe. After a long while,
The wind between heaven and earth began to calm, and a majestic gray fog emerged around the supreme primordial great disk, drowning it in splendor, and the sky darkened. Only then did the beings regain their senses, instantly stirring with excitement. The oppressive might of immortal Lord Xianxia had completely vanished. Did this not mean that Sword Venerable Fudao had slain him? Unbelievable! Immortal Lord Xianxia had appeared daunting and formidable, like the wrath of the vast heavens, and the mortal spirits could only tremble. Even with Sword Venerable Fudao's intervention, they had expected an earth-shattering great battle, yet it ended with one-sided suppression. Tyrannical! Invincible! Even though they could not see Sword Venerable Fudao in person, this was the impression that the beings formed of Sword Venerable Fudao from witnessing the battle. The sky gradually brightened, and the dark clouds began to disperse, leaving no trace of the supreme primordial great disk as if it had never appeared. The third Medicine Valley was abuzz with noise. All disciples were excited. Guan briskly approached Ji Xiaoyu and eagerly asked, "With your abilities, can you tell what realm Sword Venerable Fudao is in?" Ji Xiaoyu looked at him, offering no reply. Sun and Moon Netherworld Emperor then took a deep breath and said, "His realm is not something you should conjecture, boy. Just be your mortal self, and do not involve yourself in great causes." Having said that, he vanished into thin air. Guan pretended to be astonished but felt secretly thrilled inside. Yes, this is the feeling. Though you look down on me, I shall wait for you on the immortal path, but whether you can make me see you, that's still to be seen. Guan turned to Ji Xiaoyu and asked, "Was he unsettled by Sword Venerable Fudao?" Ji Xiaoyu nodded and said, "Indeed, Sword Venerable Fudao is powerful. I never expected there to be such a great cultivator hidden within the great heavenly spirit land. I even suspect." "Suspect what?" "Nothing. I'm going back to cultivate." As Ji Xiaoyu turned away and left, Guan cocked his head, feeling as though she too was provoked. Guan chuckled inwardly and then waited in place, feeling Shenzhen's presence, eager to hear how Shenzhen would boast about Sword Venerable Fudao. After 30 minutes, Supreme Sect remained noisy, and there were even many disciples kneeling at the heavenly repair platform in worship of the heaven-cutting axe. Inside the loft, Guan had a strange look on his face as he watched Shenzhen sketch the supreme primordial great disk on paper. He had a very subtle feeling that someone was spying on his path, and that person was Shenzhen. That is to say, Shenzhen's drawing concealed mysteries. He also pondered another question: if he could feel Shenzhen spying, then could the ancient beings depicted in her previous drawing sense her too? There was a time before when a drawing suddenly destroyed itself. Was that perhaps a warning? How about it? Impressive, right? Shenzhen saw Guan silent and proudly asked. Guan looked up at her and asked, "Aren't you afraid of displeasing Sword Venerable Fudao?" Shenzhen waved her hand and said, "How could that be? Sword Venerable Fudao guards the Supreme Sect, and now I too am a disciple of the Supreme Sect. He is practically my martial master. How could he mind such things? Don't forget the existence of the heavenly repair platform. No one in this world has a broader heart than Sword Venerable Fudao." Well spoken, I like it. Guan then joined in the praises for Sword Venerable Fudao, catching Shenzhen in the act, who had long admired Sword Venerable Fudao, and today's battle had awakened the fervor hidden deep in her heart. It was not just them. Throughout the various oceans, continents, and islands of the Broken Sea domain, wherever there were living beings, they were discussing Sword Venerable Fudao. They preferred the name Sword Venerable Fudao over the Holy Court's Holy Sword. Moreover, the title of Holy Sword had been unilaterally announced by the Holy Court, and they had not heard of Sword Venerable Fudao accepting this title. The commotion at the Broken Sea domain was great, and even though Guan tried to contain it, the prior activities of the autumn evening Immortal Lord had already spread, causing various sects to start sending people to investigate. The impact of this battle was far from over. It continued to spread over the following years. The autumn evening Immortal Lord was no ordinary being. He was the highest realm faller of the Immortal Dynasty. When the news reached the Holy Court, the Holy Minister was greatly pleased. "Ha ha ha, do you see? This is why I agreed to him not accepting the chief fortune. When I met him, I felt he was extraordinary. Now it seems he might very well be a free immortal." The Holy Minister stood on the high steps, laughing heartily with great passion. In the hall stood holy gods, holy kings, and other beings of the third grade heavenly position. They were all immensely shocked. The autumn evening Immortal Lord was an age-old being with unquestioned power,
Yet he was easily slain. How can you tell he's a free immortal? The divine thought true immortal could also kill the autumn evening immortal. Hee. The key is you couldn't predict, couldn't see how he killed the autumn evening immortal. Xianxia Emperor must be furious now. I heard the immortal dynasty had previously also sent people to Wu Sword Venerable Fudao. A free immortal? Who exactly is this divine personage? If he truly is a free immortal, his name must resonate through the ages. Could he be from outside heaven? But we need not investigate him. It would only push him towards the immortal dynasty. From his actions, this person has a compassionate heart for all living beings. Befriending him would pose no threat. The high ranks of the holy court discussed fervently, admiring Sword Venerable Fudao, which made the holy minister smile even more broadly. Their previous attempt to woo Sword Venerable Fudao had already caused discontent within the holy court, and with the court being suppressed by the immortal dynasty over the years, the holy minister felt deeply stifled. No, I must make another trip, the holy minister thought, his eyes twinkling. The immortal dynasty received the news just as fast. Because a Tao Void mysterious immortal from their ranks had died, the autumn evening immortal lord held a revered position in the holy court. His death thoroughly enraged the immortals, making Sword Venerable Fudao the most hated figure among them. And Hao was also oppressed because of this, but his life was not in danger. Before dealing with Sword Venerable Fudao, he was grounded and couldn't leave the immortal dynasty. The deterrent power of slaying a Tao Void mysterious immortal was indeed too strong, which prevented the immortal dynasty from retaliating immediately, instead sinking into a strange silence. When Gu An and an Xian went to the mortal world peak, all the peaks were discussing this battle. The name of Sword Venerable Fudao resounded across the world once more, earning the admiration of countless beings. After all, though Sword Venerable Fudao was a holy sword of the holy court, he had not received the reward of Qi fortune. Without being under the holy court or the immortal dynasty, his capability to exhibit his own mighty prowess was truly awe-inspiring. Time flew swiftly. 3 years passed, and the end of the year arrived. Guan arrived in Mystic Valley and saw his disciples clearing the snow. His gaze landed on the mountain beside him wherein Xianxia was following Jianghu in cultivation, all disciples feeling Jianghu's preference for Xianxia. Lu Jiujia walked over and laughed. That kid, like me back in the day, truly spares no effort in teaching his disciples, holding nothing back. In his view, Jianghu did quite well. After all, Xianxia was a descendant of Hao. Regardless of Xianxia's achievements, he was at least forming a good bond with Hao. Guan nodded and said, "Call them both to my cabin in a while." With that, he walked toward his own pavilion. Soon, he arrived inside his house, rubbed his hands together, and then from his sleeves, he took out a book. A radiant smile appeared on his face as he muttered, Xiantiani, could you write a bit faster? You're really slowing down." It had been decades since the last volume of Green Hero Travelogue was released, and over those years, Guan had been eagerly waiting. He could have divined the contents of Green Hero Travelogue by divining Xiantiani, but he had chosen not to. After all, life should have some expectations. Otherwise, time would pass very quickly. He sat in a chair and began reading the book. About 30 minutes later, Jianghu brought Xianxia to Gu An's house. 20-year-old Xianxia had even more of Hao's demeanor. Their facial features were nearly identical, which was probably why Si Yener had relented. There had been other descendants of the An family asking her, but she had refused them all. Both of them bowed to Guan. And Xianxia curiously looked at Guan. Since entering the valley, this was the first time Guan had summoned him. Although he didn't think the nascent soul realm was very impressive, Jianghu always mentioned Guan was no ordinary man, which made him quite curious about Guan. Jianghu looked at Guan, his eyes concealing none of his admiration. Thinking back to that majestic scene 3 years ago, his heart surged with emotion. What loose immortal! Master must be Sword Venerable Fudao. No one in the entire Supreme Sect knew about Sword Venerable Fudao's hidden identity. Yet Guan hid his cultivation. It was too coincidental. Shengten, have you felt any discomfort lately? Guan asked, his face wearing a gentle smile. He had laughed aloud when he first heard the name Xianxia. This young man wanting to surpass Hao? How could that be possible? Not to mention the talent, Guan would never allow his proud disciple to be surpassed by a junior. No matter how many strong and talented individuals he had seen, and how still remained his proudest disciple in Guan's heart, even compared to the absolute geniuses in Lu Han and Long Zhan's memories, and how lost to no one. He calculated the days, and how was getting closer and closer to the Nirvana realm. After receiving the heavenly Tao inheritance in the Holy Court, and Hao's cultivation had surged like floodwaters through a broken dam, unstoppable in its growth. No discomfort, master. Have you noticed anything? And Xianxia asked nervously. The curse of the Yin family was still a shadow over his heart. He also feared suddenly dropping dead. The gold pattern on his forehead began to emit a golden light, as if an eye had appeared on his forehead, leaving Xianxia and Jianghu wide-eyed. Boom! The scene around them abruptly changed, removing the pavilion's furnishings from their view, and they found themselves in a space that was surreal and eerie. The two instinctively turned their heads but could see nothing. They just felt an inexplicable panic. Guan picked up the fate-determining pen, pointing it at Xianxia. And Xianxia had seen the fate-determining pen before and hadn't thought much of it, but at this moment, it seemed so terrifying. Jianghu felt the same, and looking again at the crown on Guan's head, he also felt its extraordinary nature. Could it be that his master was a treasure all over? His eyes were full of awe and fervor, wishing he could prostrate himself to his master right there. To cultivate under such a powerful figure. He felt so fortunate. Are you ready, Xianxia? Guan asked emotionlessly, causing Xianxia's throat to bob. I forgot to tell you, Guan said. The An in your family is taken from my name. Even if the An family forgets you, as long as you follow me, you will never be separated from the An family. These words made Xianxia's eyes widen in disbelief. Sword Venerable Fu Dao. And Xianxia felt like he had been hit by a pleasant surprise. Just as he was about to speak, Guan suddenly brandished his pen, and with a single stroke, Xianxia felt as though he had been struck by lightning. His entire body frozen in place. His complexion drastically changed. He wanted to speak, but found himself incapable. He could feel something being shed from him. No, being abandoned. An endless tide of loneliness overwhelmed him, and he fell into an unprecedented fear. His eyes unexpectedly brimming over with tears. At that moment, he was like a lost child, wanting to crouch down and hold himself. Your talent may not equal Hao's, but can your will surpass his? Guan's voice reached him, like dawn's light chasing away the darkness from Xianxia's inner world. And Xianxia looked up to see Guan and Jianghu standing before him. Jianghu looking anxious and seemingly trying to say something, but Xianxia couldn't hear a thing. His gaze rested on Guan, who was looking back at him calmly. For some reason, he didn't feel distanced. Instead, he sensed a kind of power. I cannot let down my master's expectations. And Xianxia gritted his teeth and forcefully suppressed the negative emotions in his heart, his body trembling as if he were in a chilly cellar. At that moment, Guan's brow furrowed, and he shifted his right foot. Suddenly, an explosive burst of demonic qi enveloped the surrounding space. Jianghu turned his head, looking towards Guan with astonishment. Guan remained silent, waiting for the threads of Xianxia's fate to be stripped away. Aren't you afraid of the heavenly Taoist backlash, Taoist friend, for changing the fate of a person entangled with the karma of the heavenly Tao? An indifferent voice came from outside the demonic qi, startling Jianghu into hastily turning around. How could there be someone else? Guan lifted his head, his gaze piercing through the demonic qi, crossing the void, to peer into another mysterious and dark space. Within it flowed a magnificent river, emanating radiant auroras, neither its source nor endpoint visible. The River of Destiny. A figure stood atop the River of Destiny. The figure shone with a silvery light, with only their silhouette discernible. Guan couldn't see through to their true form, but he could sense the other had locked onto his position. He had already employed the supreme concealing void technique, rendering the space around him impenetrable to peering eyes. Thus he wasn't worried. Moreover, the River of Destiny was incredibly distant from him. The other party was merely communicating, with no intention of descending into the great heavenly spirit land. Do you wish to warn or stop me? Guan asked. The voice of the silvery figure carried through. I intend to warn. I drift within the River of Destiny and cannot descend upon the world, You need not worry. I can see that you, Taoist friend, have stepped onto the way of cause and effect. One day we shall meet. I will await you by the river of destiny.
Guan seemed to think of something. His expression turned strange as he continued to ask, May I know the name of my Taoist friend?
I have no Taoist title, only a common name, which is likely unknown. My name is Lu Qiuxian. Hearing the name, Guan fell silent. Jianghu didn't even dare to breathe too heavily. The river of destiny. The way of cause and effect. And Lu Qiuxian. Just the sound of it was terrifying. Is this the world of the immortal path realm? While shocked, Jianghu felt an unprecedented ambition and resolve stirring within him. He had his own motives, deliberately tempering Xianxia, hoping Xianxia would hold family ties in the highest regard to prevent him from opposing Anhao in the future. In his heart, Anhao was definitely more important. Without Anhao, there would be no Xianxia. Hearing Guan's words, Xianxia persisted. Suddenly, with a boom, blood flame abruptly ignited on him. His body curled up and trembled incessantly. Guan raised his right hand, and a dark purple medicinal herb appeared, promptly turning into powder that hovered in his palm, forming a whirlwind. Jianghu couldn't help but fix his gaze on the whirlwind in Guan's palm, curious about what Guan was about to do. Guan then swung his palm toward Xianxia. As the palm struck out, Xianxia's flesh instantly dispersed, leaving only a skeleton behind, which startled Jianghu. Before he could utter a word, a dark purple mist surrounded Xianxia, quickly enveloping him and covering the skeleton. Jianghu looked intently, his hands clenched into fists inside his sleeves, his heart in turmoil. Fearful that Xianxia would die right there. The scene was too frightening. Flesh had dispersed in an instant. Could a person still live? The dark purple mist soon submerged the skeleton, billowing and slowly forming the outline of flesh.
That is. Jianghu's eyes widened, his expression one of astonishment.
Guan remained expressionless. This was a 9th-tier medicinal herb, which he had acquired at great cost. It contained vast spiritual energy, making the molding of a flesh body not challenging, as long as Xianxia's life force was controlled. If his soul had not left the body, it would be manageable. A new life and destiny. What path will you take from here? Guan wondered to himself, also contemplating whether Xianxia's maximum lifespan would increase. If it could, this act would also be a method of defying the heavens and changing one's fate. Inside the attic, Guan sat in a chair, his eyes filled with disappointment. Xianxia, Foundation Establishment Realm 8th Floor 20/350/5000. His cultivation level had increased, as had his lifespan, but his maximum lifespan had not. That is to say, replacing bloodlines was not a way to change maximum lifespan. The concept of maximum lifespan became even more complex in Guan's eyes. Luckily, Xianxia was considered as having defied fate, breaking free from the destiny of the family.
Master, may I take him down?
Jianghu, holding Xianxia and wearing an anxious expression, asked.
Xianxia was covered in a robe for modesty and had not yet awakened.
Guan nodded, and Jianghu sighed with relief, signaling that Xianxia was already out of danger. He immediately carried Xianxia away. After leaving the house, he also closed the door behind him. Guan then began to ponder about Lu Qiuxian. After Lu Han was executed by the Black Profound Emperor, how did Lu Qiuxian survive? There must have been many stories behind it. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away from the Supreme Sect, carriages progressed across the mountains. Xianxia was meditating on the floor of a carriage when she suddenly opened her eyes, frowning. What's going on? This feeling. What exactly is it? Why can't I remember? Xianxia mumbled to herself, experiencing an inexplicable sense of emptiness within her. In the carriage behind her, a mother and daughter felt the same, clutching their chests in silence, sinking into an indescribable sadness, without understanding what was causing their grief. Anhao, who was far away in the immortal dynasty, sensed it too.
He abruptly opened his eyes, his brows furrowed in concern. He looked towards the setting sun in the distance, his gaze filled with confusion. He sat meditating on a cliff, his body entwined with chains of golden light, unable to stand up. Who is trying to sever the karma with me? And Hao wondered in surprise, having delved into the way of cause and effect since he had received the legacy of the heavenly Tao. However, his understanding of the way of cause and effect was still weak, lacking the power to deduce its mysteries. As he couldn't figure it out, he attributed the penalization to the immortal dynasty, deciding not to dwell on it and continued his path enlightenment. Oppressed by the immortal dynasty, he did not panic, knowing that as long as his martial master was there, the immortal dynasty would dare not act rashly. He was also astonished when he heard that his martial master had slain Autumn Equinox immortal lord, having met the man whose formidable aura had made a substantial impression. It was unimaginable to Hao that such a powerful being would be powerless before his martial master. He found that no matter how powerful an entity he encountered, how profound a force's heritage was, those seemingly invincible and unconquerable beings were like nothing before his martial master. He could not fathom just how strong his martial master truly was. He even looked forward to how the encounter would unfold if Xianxia Emperor, the current publicly acknowledged number one under the heavens, were to face his martial master. He believed his martial master could also be the first under the heavens. Thinking of his martial master's strength, and Hao cast aside his distractions, feeling a surge of fervor. He wanted to catch up to his martial master as soon as possible. As the days went by, New Year's Day arrived in the blink of an eye. At dawn, Mystic Valley began preparing for the festival. And Xianxia was chopping wood in the forest, his hair tied high at the back of his head, revealing his stern features. A female disciple approached holding a teapot, looking at Xianxia hesitantly. "Senior brother, are you tired? Would you like some spiritual tea?" She observed Xianxia, her expression turning timidly coy. Xianxia turned his head with a smile, like ice melting away, he said with a laugh. "As a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator, how could I be tired? However, I cannot refuse junior sister's kindness. Just leave it there, and I will bring the teapot back for you." The female disciple was about to say something when the bushes rustled, and a white deer darted past them. A male disciple chased after it, not daring to glance at Xianxia and the female disciple, fearful of interrupting them. Xianxia looked up and couldn't help but smile. Somewhat vexed but not wanting to bother her senior brother further, the female disciple resignedly placed the teapot down and left. Inside Mystic Valley, Guan stood shoulder to shoulder with Xianxia, admiring the landscape of the medicine garden. "Now that we're here, tell me, why did you want to come and see this place?" Guan turned his head towards Xianxia and asked. Xianxia's gaze wandered, as if searching for someone. She murmured, "No, this isn't right." "What's not right?" Guan asked, puzzled. Ever since he had met her that day, he felt something was off about her, as though she was always in a daze. Recently, the presence of reincarnation around Xianxia had been growing stronger. A sensation Guan had only ever felt around Ji Xiaoyu, which meant that Ji Xiaoyu was awakening memories of her past life. Xianxia did not answer Guan, but instead, she began to walk away. In the direction of the woods where Xianxia was. Guan followed her, curious about what Xianxia was searching for. Could it have something to do with Xianxia? Guan was perplexed, sensing that something strange was happening. When Xianxia reached the forest, she coincidentally passed by the female disciple, who instinctively looked towards Xianxia. Attracted by her extraordinary aura and veiled face, the disciple was so mesmerized it was as if she had seen an immortal, leaving her in a daze. Only when Guan walked past her did she snap out of it. Though curious about Xianxia's identity, she dared not follow. To the new disciples, Guan's authority in Mystic Valley was paramount. Upon seeing Xianxia, Xianxia's expression subtly changed. Xianxia seemed to sense something and involuntarily turned his head. When his eyes met Xianxia's, he frowned, feeling an uncomfortable sensation. Xianxia's pupils twinkled peculiarly, the corners of her mouth rising beneath her veil. "What's wrong?" Guan came up and asked. Seeing him, Xianxia immediately raised his hand in salute. Ignoring Guan, Xianxia said in a strange tone, "Those who evade the heavenly Tao variables." Xianxia's frown deepened, suddenly feeling a chill that made him instinctively fear. Guan stood in front of Xianxia and asked with concern, "Are you okay?" He reached out to touch Xianxia's shoulder. Snap! Xianxia suddenly grabbed Guan's wrist, her gaze turned sinister, and she spoke coldly. "I'm fine, don't touch me." Demon Shore has developed hostility towards you.
seeking to annihilate you. Do you wish to use lifespan detection on it? Chapter 398. The Lifespan of the Free Immortal. Demon Shore? Guan had never heard this name before, so he immediately chose to perform a lifespan detection on it. Demon Shore, Free Immortal Realm 9 Layers 58, 027, 612/500, 000, 000/1, 000, 000, 000, 500 million years of lifespan, with a maximum lifespan of 1 billion years. Why did this person harbor animosity toward him? Could it be that Xianxia was so bizarre because he was being manipulated by this person? Guan looked at Xianxia standing before him, feigning astonishment. Xianxia slightly tilted his head to look at Guan and asked, "Is there a problem?" Although the voice was Xianxia's, the tone was definitely not. Guan pretended to be tense and replied, "No." Xianxia let go, then took a step to the side, casting a deep glance at Xianxia that made his heart unease. Xianxia smiled and then turned away. Xianxia took a deep breath, moved to Guan's side, and seemed about to say something, but Guan raised his hand, signaling him to hold his words. Once Xianxia had walked out of the grove, Guan's expression turned ice-cold. "Martial Master Shi?" Xianxia cautiously began, the look in Xianxia's eyes just now filling him with dread, as if a natural predator had set its sights on him, even making him feel a major disaster was imminent. "It doesn't matter." Guan uttered 2 words, and upon hearing them, Xianxia immediately relaxed. The phrase "martial master" was enough. Xianxia knew well that Guan was Sword Venerable Fudao. Thinking back to the shocking Great Mixed Yuan plate from a few years ago, his spirit was immediately uplifted. With the martial master backing him, what was there to fear? His task was to diligently cultivate, striving to surpass and make his martial master proud of him. Guan patted Xianxia on the shoulder, encouraging him to continue. Xianxia looked at Guan's departing figure and raised a hand to his own shoulder, chuckling softly. The upcoming spring festival remained lively. Although Guan was thinking about Demon Shore, he still acted naturally, actively celebrating with his disciples. Because of the intervention a few years ago by Sword Venerable Fudao, which greatly lessened the chaos in Taitsong continent, the recent spring festivals had been lively, especially for the disciples of the Supreme Sect, who on such days would rid their minds of worries and start harboring hopes for the future. Until late into the night. Third Medicine Valley. In the attic. Guan sat at the desk, eyes closed, his divine thought frenziedly scanning the great heavenly spirit land. Unable to find a cause and effect similar to Xianxia, he extended his divine thought into the universe. Though Demon Shore's cultivation level was inferior to his, being hated by someone was intolerable. Guan did not admonish him, merely nodding before expressing a few words of concern and letting him go. Watching Long Qing walk away, Guan thought of Xianxia. The number of juniors in Medicine Valley had been increasing. He wondered what the scene would look like in 1,000 years. He smiled and continued towards the transmission array platform. Upon reaching Mystic Valley, he glanced at Lu Jiujia and then left alone. He walked through the forest and gradually, a figure emerged from his body, a split of his divine skills. He allowed his split form to replace his original self, while his true form entered a state difficult for immortals to divine. The split form continued forward leisurely, while the original form leapt out of great heavenly spirit land and descended into the silent destruction domain in an incomprehensible manner to living beings. In the depths of the silent destruction domain, where it was incredibly dark without stars, just swells of dense fog as if from the primordial chaos, suffocatingly oppressive. In the darkness stood a city, silent and hanging, resembling a giant armored beast. The surface of the buildings had sharp, towering columns, frighteningly ominous. Inside a grand hall within the city, demonic chi swirled like mist. At the center sat a pool over 30 feet in diameter, the surface a bright red. A figure was meditating in the pool. She was a white-haired woman, her body bare, with long hair cascading down her front into the waters. Her back was as white and smooth as jade, perfectly contoured. This was Demon Shore. She sat with her eyes closed, her face stunningly beautiful, except for a trace of wicked aura between her brows.
Suddenly she opened her eyes, exclaiming in surprise, "How did that boy's cause and effect get severed?" Lifting her right hand, she began to deduce. Just then, a hand landed on her fair shoulder. The touch made her Taoist heart tremble and her face drastically change. "Why are you looking for someone?" A raspy voice entered her ears, chilling her to the bone. How could this be? Demon Shore was terrified to find herself completely immobile, her mana almost frozen. She was a free immortal of 9 layers. How could she be so utterly suppressed? Could it be that the other party? Thinking of the legends, she resisted her fear and asked through gritted teeth, Who are you? If you can see great heavenly spirit land with her eyes, could you also hear certain things with her ears? Guan stood behind Demon Shore, leaning slightly forward. Enshrouded with a gray aura, his true appearance concealed, he looked mysteriously formidable. Hearing his words, Demon Shore carefully recalled. She quickly thought of Xianxia, who often mentioned a person. Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Her impression of this person was very deep, deeming him a possible free immortal. But she had not calculated against Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Though free immortals differed, she was one who had stepped into reincarnation tribulation, even if not yet successfully, but at least she was trying. Sword Venerable Fu Dao, why? The longer Guan's hand pressed down, the more frantic she became. In her perception, Guan's Dao level was unfathomable, and compared to his, her way of cause and effect was insignificant. Guan could feel her fear. He deliberately gave her time to experience panic, fear, and regret. After all, Guan had been worried about her hostility all night. Killing her directly would be too lenient. He gazed down at Demon Shore, taking in her entire form. Nice skin, too bad she provoked him. Dang! Guan's gaze intensified, as he furiously infused his divine thought into her body, impacting her soul, probing her memory. Demon Shore's body trembled, quickly settling into calmness. The grand hall fell silent, even the swirling demonic chi halted. After a long while, Guan withdrew his divine thought, exerting a slight force with his right hand. Demon Shore instantly turned into ash, a shockwave spreading that caused countless tiny stars to appear in the demonic mist. Those were the shattered remnants of Demon Shore's Tao. Guan pondered over Demon Shore's memories, filled with emotion. So the reincarnation tribulation held such mysteries. Demon Shore was not only reborn herself but also could choose a mortal for rebirth. Xianxia was her choice, and she chose him after he had grown up. The reason for choosing Xianxia was his innate talent for the way of cause and effect and the uncertainties surrounding him. Demon Shore couldn't see why the uncertainties around Xianxia originated, initially not even considering Sword Venerable Fu Dao. Until years ago, during the Supreme Chaos Disc, she confirmed that Sword Venerable Fu Dao was the uncertainty surrounding Xianxia. She was surprised but not shocked. Until Xianxia appeared, using Xianxia's body, she sensed its cause and effect and was instantly moved. She even wanted to usurp Xianxia's body. Thinking of the seductive she-demon becoming a man, Guan felt somewhat awkward. Fortunately, in Demon Shore's memories, she was always a woman. Otherwise, he would feel awkward seeing Xianxia in the future. You have successfully seized 61,098,203 years of lifespan from Demon Shore. Free Immortal Realm, 9 layers. A prompt appeared before Guan, seizing over 60 million years of lifespan in one go. Not bad. Worthy of a free immortal. Would killing Taoist hidden immortals in the future bring in hundreds of millions of years of lifespan? Guan looked forward with anticipation, but for now, he did not want to confront Taoist hidden immortals. He would rather accumulate lifespan through medicinal herbs. It was safer to grow stronger unnoticed and avoid much hatred. Chapter 399 Supreme Demon Realm. The memories from Demon Shore were vast, and the greatest help to Guan was in her understanding of reincarnation tribulation. Reincarnation tribulation indeed allows one to be reborn into different times and spaces, even into the past, but whether it's the past or the future, the main Bodhi's power cannot intervene. When the reincarnated being dies or exerts the power of the main body, it will be forcibly expelled back by the heavenly Tao. This reminded Guan of the time when Xiaoyu in the 7-star spirit realm had used the power of a primordial Taoist talisman and then quickly disappeared.
It seemed she was expelled by the reincarnation tribulation. This deepened Guan's understanding of the heavenly Tao. Heavenly Tao more closely resembles a collection of rules and the grand Tao, meticulous and domineering. Guan stopped pondering and turned her gaze toward the interior of the great hall. The hall was vast, yet there were many stark differences hidden within. Those huge stone pillars were also inlaid with numerous special spirit stones. This city was none other than Demon City. According to the memories of Demon Shore, there were many such cities in the silent destruction domain. Although there was no stronger existence above Demon Shore, all the demon cities were remnants of power left by the supreme demon realm. The supreme demon realm had once been extremely powerful, aiming to devour the great heaven and earth, but was later struck down by a mysterious entity that slayed the realm master, causing it to shatter. At that time, Demon Shore was not yet fully grown. 1,000,000 demons hid within the demon city. Although these demons seemed no different from the heavenly demons to the creatures of the great heaven and earth, there were also many powers standing within the silent destruction domain, and they did not trespass into the territories of the blood prison Great Saint. Guan decided to eradicate the root of the problem and eliminate all these demons. Whenever creatures from the great heaven and earth passed near the demon city, they never met a good fate. Demon Shore even dared to attack passing free immortals, though the free immortals had their own means to escape. The attacked free immortal was actually the ancient immortal emperor from the Immortal Dynasty. Approaching noon, Guan returned to the Third Medicine Valley. He called up his attribute panel. Name: Guan. Lifespan: 650/1, 954, 210, 604. Physique: mixed yuan refined void body. Cultivation level: perfect Taoist hidden immortal realm. By slaying the 1,000,000 evil demons in the demon city, he gained nearly 500 million years of lifespan, making this trip an enormous harvest. Looking at his lifespan approaching 2 billion years, Guan felt wonderfully good. Guan proceeded into the courtyard, walked up to the table, and saluted Li Xiandao with a cupped fist. Following Li Zuando's gesture, he sat down. Li Xiandao appraised Guan and asked with a smile, "Why do I feel you've changed again?" Guan replied, "Perhaps I've aged a bit more?" As Guan grew older, his relationship with Li Xiandao became less about seniority and more like that of equals. It wasn't that Guan's outward cultivation was particularly strong, but both were several centuries old. Their life journeys were continually advancing. For those who lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years, people aged 500 to 1,000 years were considered peers, and this concept subtly influenced them as well. The two exchanged pleasantries, having not seen each other for many years. LV Xian was a supreme talent, and so was Li Xiandao, whose cultivation had reached the Mahayana realm. His Mahayana realm cultivation had outstripped LV Batian, who used to have a higher cultivation level than Li Xiandao but had failed his tribulation crossing and remained at the 9th layer of the unification realm. Seeing Li Zuando's growth rate, Guan felt gratified. After all, they were comrades in the Tao, and how could he not be delighted to see his Taoist friend's progress? How many of his old companions would still be alive in 10,000 years? Guan was not sure, but he felt that Li Xiandao had a strong chance. Ancient emperors of tens of thousands of years were not unheard of. Just look at the Xianxia emperor of the Immortal Dynasty, or Xianxia of the Holy Court, all of whom ruled for more than 1,000,000 years. After chatting for a while, Li Xiandao suddenly sighed. How many years will it take for the Taizong dynasty to become an existence like the Immortal Dynasty? The current chaos in the world is the best opportunity, but it's a pity we are not strong enough and might miss such a chance. The dynamic of the world changed day by day, but a dynasty's accumulation could not speed up as quickly, which made Li Xiandao anxious. If they missed this chance and a new ruler emerged, the Taizong dynasty would never have its day, at best dominating only a single region. Guan hadn't expected that Li Xiandao would actually harbor ambitions to replace Xianxia Emperor and Xiangtian. That was quite daring. Given Li Zuando's position of power, he surely understood the strength of the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court. For others, faced with such a gap, they would only feel envious or awed. As for replacing them, how could one even think of that? What if this chaos lasts for many years? This is a chaos that affects the entire world. Compared to the world at large, isn't the Taizong continent minuscule? Guan consoled. Li Xiandao looked at Guan and suddenly asked, if there were a very powerful force that could aid me, but accepting their help could be a hidden danger in the future. What would you choose if you were the emperor?
A very powerful force? Guan silently reasoned, instantly realizing that the force Li Xiandao mentioned was a great sect, one of the leading sects in the mortal world. They chose the Taizong dynasty with the aim of establishing a relationship with Sword Venerable Fudao. If they could control the Taizong dynasty, they would have better grounds and opportunities to contact Sword Venerable Fudao. In their eyes, Sword Venerable Fudao had the qualifications to contend against the Yongxian Emperor. This was an indispensable force for them, aspiring to surpass both the Immortal Dynasty and the Holy Court. Without free immortals, how could one dream of unifying the world? After Guan had calculated the variables, he responded, "It all depends on what you truly want, whether you wish for peace for the people of the world or if you desire to realize your own ambitions more." He did not clarify. If Li Xiandao wanted to act under the name of Sword Venerable Fudao, he did not mind giving Li a pat on the shoulder. It depended on whether Li Xiandao knew his limits. "You go meet LV Xian. I don't have other matters here," Li Xiandao said, waving his hand with a smile. Guan stood up, bowed to him, and then walked towards the courtyard gate. Seeing him leave, LV Xian immediately greeted him and pulled Guan towards a corner of Tianya Valley. "What's so secretive?" asked Guan. LV Xian whispered. "I have something great, and it won't disappoint you." Something great. Guan's interest was piqued, and he followed LV Xian away. LV Xian led Guan into a cave, his personal cave. He had crafted it here in Tianya Valley for fear of being seen by others, setting up very advanced restrictions. After entering the cave, LV Xian activated the restrictions, isolating it completely. Guan, feeling irritated, asked, "All this secrecy? Do we even have to hide it from His Majesty?" "Of course we do. If he knew, he'd go mad." LV Xian replied, his face displaying excitement. He then pulled Guan into the deepest chamber of the cave, walked up to a stone table, and took out an irregularly shaped stone slab that seemed like a large fragment. At first glance, it appeared plain with no inscriptions or runes. As he set down the slab, Guan suddenly understood something significant. His expression turned peculiar. The stone slab actually contained heavenly Tao destiny. Moreover, it was purer and more unsettling than the heavenly Tao inheritance obtained by an Hao from the Heaven sect. Its destiny emitted an indescribable oppressive force. Even Guan, the Taoist hidden immortal, felt an instinctive wariness and a glimmer of desire. He wanted to possess this heavenly Tao destiny. Yet, as this desire emerged, his wariness grew. Something was off. Guan looked at LV Xian and asked, "What is this?" He couldn't discern the cause and effect of this stone slab. This indicated that the origin of the slab was even stronger than the Taoist hidden immortal himself. At this realization, Guan almost wished LV Xian would take this item away and keep it far from him. What kind of thing was this? Trying to harm him? LV Xian, with an excited smile, said, "This is an inheritance I stumbled upon. You might not believe it, but this contains the legacy of a true immortal, a real godlike immortal. Not something any immortal dynasty or holy court could compare to." Immortal legacy? Guan frowned. Neither Lu Han nor Long Zhan had encountered a real immortal through the ages, although they'd met many who claimed to belong to the immortal or divine race. This had led Guan to always believe that the so-called immortals were merely more powerful beings. LV Xian continued, "The inheritance here only cares about talent, not cultivation level. I failed, but I think you should give it a try." "Why should it be me? There are so many geniuses," Guan hesitated to ask. LV Xian glared at him and said impatiently, "There are many geniuses, but the only one I have a good relationship with is you. I wouldn't give it to an Hao. You have supreme talent, yet you can restrain your competitive spirit and live in seclusion here. I think you becoming an immortal would be better, at least you wouldn't threaten me, and you are indeed very good to your friends." Although Guan was curious, he felt that this matter was very dangerous, so he said, "Actually, His Majesty's talent is also very strong." After hearing this, LV Xian's eyes brightened as he said, "You noticed it too? I thought I was the only one who knew." But don't tell him I know." "Ha ha ha, don't worry.
He still thinks he's hidden himself well enough, not realizing that you are the deepest enigma. Think about it. It makes sense that Sword Venerable Fudao has always stayed at Supreme Sect, certainly to cultivate you. And Hao claims to be a disciple of Sword Venerable Fudao, but he left and Sword Venerable Fudao is still here. That must mean he's just riding on your coattails. LV Xian chuckled, truly believing that Guan was stronger than An Hao. He had sparred with both of them, and Guan had given him the greatest sense of oppression and psychological shadow. He even believed that Guan was the #1 genius under the heavens. Hearing this, Guan fell into silence, his gaze fixed on a stone slab. Wait. Should he use his lifespan to simulate this? Guan thought it feasible as touching the stone slab directly seemed too dangerous. His mind made up, he immediately began to simulate. Simulating the inheritance will consume 1 million years of lifespan. Do you wish to continue? That much? Guan hesitated, but looking at the stone slab, he was really tempted. Forget it. Take the plunge. While LV Xian continued his incessant chatter, Guan chose to continue, and then his consciousness entered a vast white space. Everything was blank, and below his feet, grass first emerged, rapidly expanding, and mountains appeared in the distance in all directions. The world was vast and the sky magnificent. Guan looked ahead and saw atop the mountains a dazzling orb of light, immensely gigantic, much larger than any mountain on earth. Within the light orb, there stood a towering figure. 10,000 zhong in height, adorned in armor, wielding a divine weapon, exuding a domineering aura that overwhelmed all living beings. Upon seeing this figure, Guan felt threatened, and he couldn't help but think of Black Profound Emperor, whom Lu Han encountered, and Annihilation God Emperor, whom Long Zhan encountered. Their auras were similar. What realms were they actually in? Mortal spirit, having seen the heavenly Tao, why not kneel? A majestic voice rang out, but Guan did not kneel since it was just a simulation, and he asked, "What inheritance is this?" "This is the heavenly Tao immortal position inheritance. To gain my approval, you must defeat me." Defeat. Chapter 401 Shapeshifting. You can keep it and accept the inheritance when you are strong enough. Guan stared at LV Xian, speaking earnestly, fearing that LV Xian would forsake his greatest opportunity. At the moment, the heavenly Tao immortal position proved stronger than the Holy Court, the Immortal Dynasty, and even the Silent Destruction Domain. As immortal, if LV Xian missed it, finding a stronger chance in the future would be almost impossible. LV Xian couldn't rely on stealing lifespan to become stronger like him. LV Xian raised an eyebrow and said, "What do you mean, you think I can't rely on myself?" "You can't, at least not beyond this inheritance." "Bullshit!" LV Xian erupted in fury, his terrifying aura exploding like a volcano, startling the entire Tianya Valley. Suddenly, Guan raised his hand and pressed it on his shoulder, instantly dispersing his aura. LV Xian's eyes widened. He knew Guan was definitely stronger than himself, but to be suppressed so easily, rendered unable to move. In that moment, he recalled a duel between them hundreds of years ago. This moment was exactly like that one. Guan looked at him calmly and asked, "Can you keep this stone tablet now?" LV Xian couldn't answer. He was unable to speak. "Just blink if you agree." Hearing Guan's words, LV Xian blinked frantically. Guan withdrew his hand, and LV Xian breathed a sigh of relief, gasping for air. He looked at Guan with fear. He had learned from Li Xiandao that Guan was younger than him, yet how had he cultivated to such a level? Compared to Guan, he was practically useless. Guan smiled and said, "Quickly put it away. When you become an immortal, if I can't catch up to you or have troubles, you'll be my backup." Upon hearing this, pride replaced the awkwardness on LV Xian's face. He patted his chest and said, "Naturally, I'm not your equal now, but I will surpass you one day, and then I'll have your back." Despite Guan not always being nice to him and often scaring him, wasn't that a form of care? In the past, when he initiated provocations towards Guan, Guan didn't mind, but if someone else treated him that way, he wouldn't be so merciful. And for Guan to return such an important inheritance to him, he was truly a man worth respecting. LV Xian stored the stone tablet and Guan put his arm around his shoulder as they walked toward the cave entrance. "By the way, your father misses you. When are you going to visit him?" "Him?"
That old undying man, if I visit him, I won't be able to help but kill him. Nonsense, blood is thicker than water.
He hasn't tortured or mistreated you. Why talk of killing? If you really wanted to kill him, could he even stand up to you? He's hundreds of years old. Why act like a child?
You don't understand.
Of course I don't understand. I have no parents. Well, I envy you for that. Hey, you brat, are you looking for a spanking? Just go back to the Supreme Sect and see your father. He treats me well and is always talking about you. My ears are almost calloused. If you go, he'll teach you a divine skill that will definitely enhance your strength.
Really? Guan never lie.
And so, the two chatted and walked out of the cave. Back in the valley, Guan reverted to being an ordinary nascent soul realm cultivator, while LV Xian continued to exude the arrogance of a supreme youth. A month later, LV Batian came to find Guan, extremely happy, pulling him to drink because LV Xian had come to see him. Although the father and son were still not on the best of terms, their relationship had begun to improve. He was touched to learn from LV Xian that it was Guan who had asked LV Xian to see him. This youngster always seemed impatient with his ramblings, but in his heart, he remembered his father's love. LV Batian looked at Guan with eyes full of fondness, as if looking at another son. Guan didn't refuse, as he was just in the mood for a drink. Perhaps this was what meant by, with great power comes great responsibility. He not only had to save the world, he also had to help people handle domestic affairs. How fortunate the immortal cultivation world was to have me. Filled with self-emotion, Guan then competed with LV Batian in a drinking contest and finally LV Batian was defeated. They were drinking high-level spiritual wine. It was all right for Guan to show off his strength a bit, especially since LV Batian was not considered strong in the Supreme Sect. Taking advantage of LV Batian's drunken stupor, Guan went downstairs. Just as he descended, Xiaoyu walked out of the room and said to him, "Come in." Guan shook his head. "No thanks, your strength isn't enough. Practice some more." Last time, to teach Xiaoyu a lesson, Guan had played Go with her in her room for an hour and beat her decisively, which left her quite unconvinced, and now she would think about game strategies even during her practice. Just one more game and you'll see if it's enough. Ha! Guan couldn't be bothered with her and continued walking toward the distance. Xiaoyu watched his back, took a deep breath, and thought about the cost of losing the game last time. It made her teeth itch with frustration. Before the game, they had made a deal that if she won, Guan would focus more on his own practice, and if Guan won, he would pinch her face. Well, pinch it as it may be, he really dared to do it strongly. She looked at Guan's back, her mind full of confusion. Why in the world was his Go skill so strong? She finally understood why Nine-Finger Divine Lord couldn't maintain his composure in the Immortal Path realm when facing Guan. After walking some distance, Guan leaped up, aiming for the outer gate city. It had been ages since he last strolled in the city. Today, he might as well reinforce the sword intent on the heavenly repair platform. Too many people had been comprehending his sword intent, causing it to continuously weaken. Recently even a divine immortal of wondrous dharma had come to study it. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, another decade passed. That day, in the deep sea, hidden spirit palace, Guan lay on a chair on the open ground, holding the supreme secret records. The deep sea dragon carp was beside him practicing the heaven and earth primordial skill. This skill had been upgraded, but being too complex was in fact not beneficial, and his disciples were all practicing it. How could he allow the deep-sea dragon carp's treatment to exceed theirs? Even among his underlings, Tian Yaoer was the most important. The deep-sea dragon carp opened its eyes, flew next to Guan, and asked cautiously, "Master, I think I can shapeshift. What do you think I should turn into?" Guan turned over, his back facing it, and said, "Whatever you want." He didn't care if a male demon wanted to shapeshift. It didn't matter even if it didn't. The deep-sea dragon carp caught a glimpse of a picture on the supreme secret records, pondered for a while, then turned and left. 2 ancient hours later, Guan left. By the time he returned, it was already half a month later. Upon return, he was taken aback. He saw a figure at the entrance of the hidden spirit palace. For a moment, he thought he saw a naked creature from the demon shore. But this fellow was not a female demon. When the deep-sea dragon carp turned to look at Guwen, its stunningly beautiful face flashed a captivating smile, its long hair reaching its waist, and its skin as white as snow shimmeringly. He swayed his body as he walked towards Guwen and immediately threw a robe at him. "Put this on immediately." Guwen really wanted to scold him. A male demon turning into a female form. What was this nonsense? Absolutely disgusting. The deep-sea dragon carp, hearing the dissatisfaction in his voice, hurriedly put on the robe, looking at Guwen nervously like he had done something wrong, his exceptionally beautiful face filled with a look of grievance. They still vividly remembered the recent attack by the Immortal Lord during the Mid-Autumn Festival. His booming voice and imposing pressure. They were curious about the types of changes unfolding in the outside world. The Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court are fighting fiercely. Not long ago, I heard that an immortal spirit effortlessly moved an entire sea area with one hand, with billions of creatures at his mercy. He fought against the great cultivator of the Holy Court with the ocean in his grasp. It was earth-shattering. Guwen casually picked an event to recount, listening intently as the three demons did. What he spoke of were actual events. As time passed, casualties of the Immortal Dynasty and Holy Court escalated, deepening the hate between them. If this continued, a battle that would sweep across the great heaven and earth was inevitable. Guwen had calculated somewhat, fearing that the fight might cause heaven and earth to split apart, but with so many variables, he couldn't clearly discern all the choices of the free immortal or predict what was within the reincarnation tribulation of Xianxia. For the time being, it was impossible to see who would win or lose. Guwen wasn't too worried though, as Taitsong Continent, where he resided, hadn't suffered much from the disturbances. For him that was enough. As they listened to the tales of the world's vicissitudes, Tian Yaoer's heart yearned, but she did not propose to venture out. Her strength was still insufficient. It was mere curiosity. Seeing their interest, Guwen spoke of a few more events. If it could strengthen their will to pursue immortal cultivation, Guwen was naturally pleased. Snowflakes fell, marking the end of the year. The end of Lu Jujia's destined life had come. Guwen and Lu Jiujia sat at the edge of a cliff, overlooking Mystic Valley. Big brother, 600 years ago, did you ever think that Mystic Valley could ever achieve such prosperity? Lu Jiujia asked with a chuckle while stroking his beard, eyes filled with many distant images that transitioned from hazy to clear. From here, one could see disciples in the forests outside Mystic Valley, cultivated demon beasts, various brightly colored groves, all within a dozen miles of Mystic Valley's domain, thriving and booming. Guwen replied, "Actually, I feel there isn't much difference between now and the past because some people are still here. Precisely, you're still here." The original acquaintances of Mystic Valley had dwindled to Lu Jiujia alone. Once he passed on, Mystic Valley would become a closed chapter to Guwen, or at least not as significant in his heart. Lu Jiujia turned to look at Guwen, feeling that his big brother's profile was still so youthful, as if time had left no trace on him. "Big brother, do you remember Su Han?" Lu Jiujia suddenly asked. Guwen glanced at him, replying, "How could I forget? Until now, no other disciple has taken a more crooked path than him." Mentioning Su Han stirred even more emotions in Guwen. As the brothers talked about Su Han, Guwen began to recognize the Su Han described by Lu Jiujia. The snow grew heavier, and fog rose around Mystic Valley, gradually swallowing the sight of mortals. Lu Jiujia's head sank lower, and his voice weakened. Jianghu stood in front of the wooden railing in the precinct, his gaze fixed on Lu Jiujia atop the cliff, eyes brimming with reluctance. Last night, Lu Jiujia had already talked with him. He knew that today Lu Jiujia was going to depart. Though they called each other martial brothers in Medicine Valley, in Jianghu's heart, Lu Jiujia was like his second father. The pain in Jianghu's heart was overwhelming as his hands clenched the wooden railing tightly. And Shengtian emerged from the forest and was about to greet Jianghu when he caught the expression on Jiang's face, so Shengtian followed his gaze. Seeing the figures of Lu Jiujia and Guwen, Shengtian fell silent. He was quite fond of Lu Jiujia as well, who had taken good care of him over the years. The thought of Lu Jiujia's impending death weighed heavily on him. He even thought of his own father and grandfather. A somber and oppressive atmosphere permeated Mystic Valley. All the disciples guessed what was happening. They dared not speak of it, choosing instead to bury themselves in their own tasks. As dusk approached, Guan carried Lu Jiujia down the mountain on his back, with the disciples gathering around in silence, watching Guan. Then, Guan began to bury Lu Jiujia as all the disciples in the valley stood vigil. After the tombstone was erected, the disciples together bowed in homage to Lu Jiujia. Under the veil of night, the accumulated snow on Guan's attic suddenly slid off, crushing a wild herb by the staircase. 40 years later, the beginning of summer. In the outer gate city, the 700-year-old Guan was at an inn, drinking with Wu Ju, who was 702. Wu Ju had just entered the mystic heart realm and was in high spirits, endlessly recounting his breakthrough experience. With the assistance of the Supreme Sect, he breezed through his advancement. You have no idea how terrifying that heavenly tribulation was. If not for the sect's aid, I would have been reduced to ashes. The sect exhausted countless spirit stones for me, and my own spirit energy elixirs were completely used up. Wu Ju was animated, eliciting occasional gasps of amazement from Guan mystic heart realm, a bit slow. That was even after Wu Ju was cultivated with care following his exoneration from a miscarriage of justice. Guan felt that Wu Ju was still far behind Li Xiandao, LV Xian, and Li Ya, and none of these three had a lifespan as long as his. After a while, Wu Ju set down his bowl of wine and asked with a smile, "What about you? How have you been these years? Any troubles?" Guan did not conceal the truth, sharing about the death of Lu Jiujia. Since that event, he spent less and less time in Mystic Valley. Yilan and Zhen Qin were out making their own way in the world. For him, Mystic Valley was filled with juniors. Interacting with them, the disciples were inevitably reserved, making him feel it was pointless to stay there. Hearing this, Wu Ju fell silent, thinking how similarly devastated he would be if Guan died. He looked at Guan and said, "Brother Gu, you need to cultivate well. Given your age and cultivation level, Nirvana is not beyond hope for you." Guan gave him a look and said irritably, "You talk as if you've already achieved Nirvana yourself." Hee, with my talent, is reaching the Nirvana realm difficult? What if you get into trouble again? Inside the Supreme Sect, I might be able to figure something out, but outside, who could help you? Guan shook his head, making Wu Ju feel awkward. He couldn't out-talk Guan, so he simply poured more wine. This brat dares to mock me. Today I must get you drunk. Wu Ju thought so to himself. He then ordered the inn to serve their most expensive spiritual wine. 2 hours later, Guan settled the drunken Wu Ju into a guest room and then descended the stairs himself, mounting the blood prison great saint and continuing his stroll. "Master, what does that wine taste like? Even someone in the mystic heart realm can be knocked out by it?" The blood prison great saint asked curiously. Ever since he started on the path of immortal cultivation in the lower realm, he had never been drunk again, and so he found it quite intriguing. "From overseas, it's spiritual wine. We can order some from the tavern later," Guan replied off-handedly, his gaze turning to the street ahead. Each year, the outer gate city would see the emergence of many new things. This also meant that the influence of the Supreme Sect was constantly expanding. Since the Shang family was dealt with, the pace of growth for the Supreme Sect accelerated further, and more powers engaged in trade with them. Especially after the sword Venerable Fu Dao vanquished the immortal Lord Qiushi, driving this trend to its peak. Along the way, Guan greeted people with a smile that never left his face. Suddenly, Guan spotted someone and quickly called out, "Jianghu, what brings you here?" He naturally knew the reason for her visit, but had to pretend otherwise. Jianghu, dressed in a red gown with a light veil covering her face, had just stepped out from a building. Looking at Guan, her eyes curved into 2 smiling crescents. She approached the blood prison great saint and joked, "If I say I came looking for you, would you believe me?" "I don't," Guan shook his head. "I don't live here." Seeing that Jiang Qiong's cultivation level had reached the 8th floor of the unification realm, Guan was pleased. With a lifespan of over 5,000 years, she was sure to achieve nirvana. That meant she could accompany him for tens of thousands of years. Although many old acquaintances had passed away, there were still many who were alive, keeping Guan from feeling too lonely. He got down from his mount and walked shoulder to shoulder with Jiang Qiong. Jiang Qiong did not hide the purpose of her visit. Some disciples from the Jianghu sect had a conflict with those from the Supreme sect and ended up being captured. She was here to demand their release. But the situation was complicated. The Supreme sect claimed that it was the Ji family who captured the Jianghu sect disciples, due to a death feud, and they were reluctant to interfere. Guan was unconcerned. It's a trivial matter. When it comes to connections, I still have some clout. The guy who just got drunk was saved by me once. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.